My brother, how you doing?
I'm very well. G. I'm very well. The sun is shining, and Leicester lockdown is slowly ending. So happy days.
Wicked, man. Bring that
How about
heat.
yourself, man? What's going on with you? Yeah,
I'm good. I'm super psyched for the conversation today as well. We got one of your good pals on the conversation today, right?
Yeah, we have. We've got a special guy, man. Special guy. I'm gonna go ahead and intro him, and then we'll get him in the podcast. So this is our is he our fourth special guest?
I think so. Yeah, number 4.
Yeah, 4 special guests. So his name is Simon Dutton. I think he has a middle name, but he can reveal that. Simon Dutton is a personal trainer for Ultimate Performance. And those of you who know anything about personal training, Ultimate Performance is a massive company, world leaders in personal training in their own space. Some really impressive work. And Simon Dutton is actually the head of education in UP Hong Kong. Massive post to be given, but to give him to anybody, but Simon seriously deserves it. His love for the gym first started in the year 2000 when he saw one Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and he was inspired not only by his physique but by his confidence and his charisma when it came to everything involved with WWF, which it would have been at the time. I think Simon can correct us on that. He's a massive wrestling fan. His current mission within the industry is twofold: to turn busy men in their 30s and 40s into real-life superheroes, to give trainers a system of education that allows them to develop their own unique method for high-quality results, something that Simon knows all too well. Everyone says they have a passion for helping people, but I thrive off being around confident people who are performing at their best, whether it's seeing the light bulb turn on helping a trainer, or it's seeing confidence change when somebody achieves a physique they never thought was possible. If I can help even a handful of people gain this confidence, I have won. That's a quote from Simon Dutton. And just a little talk, a little add on the end. He taught me everything I know. So when we get him in, I'm gonna tell you more about that. So let's get him in.
Yeah. Without further ado.
Hello.
Here's the man himself.
Yeah, I tell you everything new. Nick Daniels got nothing, right? 100%
Yeah.
I was wondering how long it would take us to bring up Nick Daniel, but straight in, bam, Nick Daniel. Yeah, love it. Yeah, man. And so leading on there, Simon literally is the mentor of mentors. I mean, no disrespect to Matt Mills, who was my mentor when I was at UP City, but Simon was a huge influence on me when I was at UP. So we will definitely get into all that stuff. Really excited to have you on, man.
Amazing,
man. Mate, buzzing to be on. Any chance to get to chat to you guys is always exciting. It's always worth it. So be looking forward to it.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Good to have you. And you are in Hong Kong right now, right?
I am, yeah. So just saying before we came on, just been here just over a year. Literally, I arrived about a day before my 29th birthday, so I've now just turned 30, decade older and wiser. And yeah, man,
welcome.
It's all right here.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Simon. Well, late happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
It was last weekend, wasn't it?
Last weekend, yeah.
Nice.
I had a week off work. My other half decided to plan something for every day for over the course of the week, like an event, which was awesome, but we had to work around restrictions going in and out of place. So we had changed everything, all the evening plans had to be gone, and then lunchtime plans then got derailed, and then they came back. So it was an exciting birthday, to say the least.
That sounds like the kind of birthday when somebody asks, when you have a kid and he turns 30, you'd be like, oh, you know what I did for my birthday? I had to go around Hong Kong trying to avoid the coronavirus restrictions, and you go into all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. Birthday, me versus coronavirus.
Yeah. What's life like right now there?
We're just going into our third wave, so we obviously we got it pretty much first after China, and then but it didn't really hit much, and then it sort of died off, and then we had our sort of mini second wave, and that's when the gym shut for the first time, and then we went down for 0 case for a while. Looked like there was light at the end of the tunnel, and then midway through July it started creeping up again. Now the gyms are shut now probably at least till September realistically, but fingers crossed sooner. So still nothing like the US or the UK in terms of cases. We're still like early hundreds, and now down to late 90s, but the biggest we've had. So
I was going to say that sounds like the limit, the upper limit from which kind of tells them that we need to close shit down seems a lot lower than what we have here. Here it's 600, 700, right? I mean, I don't know too well, but it seems like you guys are much more strict.
I don't necessarily know what I think of that either, because I think on one hand it's quite good that we obviously controlled things quite well in the early stages. I think a lot of that would attribute to people being so scared after SARS that people were wearing masks anyway. Because there's such a big helper culture here in Hong Kong, there were a lot of schools could be closed quite quickly because people didn't have to find someone to look after the children. People could still go to work. So I think in a way the fact that we react quick is quite a good thing. But on the flip side, I mean, if anyone saw my Instagram rant earlier today about the exaggeration of cases that the UK have now proved to have, that whether I'm worried that if you test more people, they'll find more people and in turn restrict things even more. And in that case, businesses just going to go downhill, especially our bars and restaurants. I just have fear for them. I'm really glad I don't own a bar.
Yeah. I saw what you posted actually. Yeah. So I saw what you posted about that as well, where they've been jacking up the numbers basically because of how they're counting it as well. Did they say what the ratio is, what the percentage of those numbers actually are?
No, they didn't. All I heard is that you could have got a case of coronavirus in mid-February, recovered, been fine for months, and then got hit by a bus. But you'd still go down as a coronavirus death statistic.
Yeah,
which
is crazy.
It's scary to think that's obviously the number that governs all the restrictions. And I mean, I'm all for if restriction places that are generally there to keep us safe, but I'm just it's is it? Because these numbers are heavily inflated. But I don't want to make this a David Icke conspiracy theory episode. So, Hong Kong is great, really nice place to live.
You've said the word now, Sam. We're already off air now, man. You've said David Icke. It's done. It's done.
Yeah, exactly.
Bruce Willis is going to come kick my door down.
One of two things will happen. You'll either sink you or you'll be into the stratosphere.
Either way, exactly. Man. What is it? Was it no publicity is all good publicity? There's no such thing as bad publicity.
Exactly. Glad I could help.
Man. Yeah, man. Cheers. Appreciate it. What was it like before? What was there a culture shock when you came over, when you went over to Hong Kong, or was it pretty seamless? How were you taken care of?
It's an interesting place because it's that half of that. It's enough of a culture shock to feel like you've gone somewhere new and interesting and exciting. But because it was a former British colony, it's enough similarity to make you feel at home quite quickly. People have asked me a lot, or do I prefer London or do I prefer Hong Kong? And in a way, I think I prefer London as a city because it's got so much more history. The architecture's great. But I think Hong Kong, the lifestyle's fantastic. I could be on top of a hike, and in half an hour I could be on the beach, or I could be in an Asian version of New York. It's got so much, on an island. I can look out my window and see islands.
Right.
It's just awesome.
Nice.
But it's I mean, and we've not had a smooth ride since I moved over here because we've obviously now got coronavirus. We have protests. So I about 3 months. My 3 month anniversary was celebrated by getting tear gas.
No way.
Which is something I didn't expect to happen in my life at all.
Yeah. So anniversaries and birthdays ain't going so well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the protest industry. I suppose it's I'd rather not that I want to be in the middle of protest, and not that I'm asking to ever be tear gassed again. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I think if there's something to tell your grandkids about, I was in Hong Kong when, when the coronavirus happened, when the protests happened, when the new law came in. It's something more interesting to say than how was time in Hong Kong? It was great. Went to the beach. It's got that little bit more of a story to tell, which is. It's the only way to look at it, have a positive light in anything, really.
Yeah. So, lay it on us how you guys know each other.
Do you want to take it, Umar?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, let's hear both versions. I always like to know what's the difference.
This is when Where was I? Where was I at the time? I had just second time I had applied for UP. I had applied the first time, showed up, not got the job, felt super disheartened, went back. This intersects with TJ's time with me, because after the first time, I went the second time, and that's when I actually booked onto a course before going, and booked onto this course thinking I'm going to upskill, I'm going to get better at my job, I'm going to understand more things, and then I'll be recognized by UP and I'll be able to work there. Fantastic. So I show up on this course taught by Tom Hibbert from is it Winning Health Solutions site? Winning Performance?
Yeah, Winning Health.
One of the Winning Health, right? Great course, really well taught. As we go around the room, introduce yourself, tell me a bit about yourself. We'll go around. So it comes to me, and I say, yeah, my name, and I say why I'm here. And Tom, who was actually coaching me at the time, he says, and Umar's actually just got a job working for Ultimate Performance, and that's something that he should be very, very proud of, and good job. And I think at the time Simon was sat next to me. I don't know whether had we spoken before that. We hadn't spoken, right? So Simon then said his part, and he was like, I actually work at Ultimate Performance. And I was like, oh shit, this guy works, right? I'm about to go work. And he was working at the branch I had actually got the job at, which is Ultimate Performance City. And it all went from there. We ended up pairing together for a lot of the teamwork stuff on the day of the course. Simon's a super sound guy. We ended up going for lunch. Me, Simon, and Tom talking. I think I took your number that day, and we just went from there. That's is that how you remember it, Si?
Pretty much, yeah. So I second the fact that Tom Hibbert, really, really smart guy, like proper king of programming. Like the guy, he knows long-term programming better than most. So I ended up on that course through a friend of mine, Anthony Jones, who owns Shapeshifters Gym in Birmingham. So I came back home, saw my friend's family whilst I was there, and then ran into Umar. As I say, just paired up for most of those things. It was a fascial therapy course. Yeah. So it was like using different tools and stuff, and like working on this unit. I think I left with cramp in my hands for about a week. But it was, but you could tell the passion this guy had straight off the bat for what he did, right? Not only both like in the terms of education and just like wanting to learn more, no ego in wanting to learn more as well, which is always a big like tick in the box for me, right? That I'm half the size of Umar, right? And I'd like to get picked a few things here and there, but I'm certainly by no means the finished article in terms of expert. But you no ego, want to learn from everyone in the room, and it just hit it off from there. So then you weren't sure at the time where you were going to go to UP Manchester or City, right? And no. Thankfully you got the City job.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. You said some really kind things there. I can't remember if it was Manchester. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think I was leaning toward Manchester a little bit, but then I came to my senses and said City, and man, we all kind of went from there. But likewise, dude. Likewise, I think there was a lot of people in the room that day. I remember there was some really cool guys, like people I'd known from Instagram who were like strength athletes and decent personal trainers that I'd heard of, but I'd never heard of Simon. But the reason I stuck it out with Si was because of some of the things that he mentioned in regards to myself, which thank you very much, which was zero ego, really hard worker. You could tell that he was about the process, you know what I mean? And like from day one, I mean, Gurinder, this is why me and you hit it off, right? Because he's in for those reps, right? Those ones that just teach me, let me ask you questions, let me learn about this, let me kind of, he's cool, like what you said last time, being the fool. So one day he will be the master, and in my opinion, he's definitely going that way 100%, and being recognized by some pretty awesome people in the industry for the work he's put in. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, I feel like Simon's going to be one of these people who will pop up onto the scene and be like, oh, he's overnight success, but he's going to have that same story of like, but I've been trolling for the last so many years to be this overnight success, and like he'll tell you a bit more about some of the. I remember him talking to me about the travels he would make to UP at the start. Going from, where was it, Si? You would go from
Wolverhampton.
Yeah, to London daily.
Yeah.
That was where you're coming in from.
Yeah. Never again. Never again.
Can you imagine? How?
God damn.
Talk me that side quickly. Just we'll get on topic again in a second, but I need to hear this.
So I got the job. I've been at UP now for 6 or 7 years. Long enough that I don't remember the exact year. And then when I started, I was very, very broke, to the point where I think think I applied about 6 or 7 times to get the job at UP, and I was turned in every time. And I was literally to the point where I thought, there's no point, I'm not going to bother applying again. There's no chance. And my partner, who's still my partner, convinced me to send in one more application. And that was the application that eventually got accepted into UP. And I remember getting the job, and it was, I came back, I used to work 3 jobs to make money. So I used to work as a personal trainer, Virgin Active. I used to work promo for a club, a nightclub in Birmingham called Risa. And then I also used to go to Hindus dressed in not very much to be a butler.
Yes.
So everything I could to try and make a little bit of money. So I remember I got this job, and I got the offer from UP at like 3 in the morning after I got back from a Risa job. I got an email saying it was accepted. And I was like so excited that I couldn't wake up anybody because it's 3 in the morning. I couldn't scream. My flatmate was in. So I was like, didn't know what to do. And eventually I woke my parents up and made them listen to me. But then about a week later, my cards got shut off because I ran out of money. I hit my overdraft limit, and I couldn't afford to pay for my insurance and my first aid certificate that I needed to before I could even be given the job. So I was at despair, and again, giving another shout out to my amazing girlfriend. She actually loaned me the money to get those certificates. So I owe her my career, really. But when I got the job, I lived with my parents back in Womben. So Womben is a big village just outside Wolverhampton. So it's about half an hour into Wolverhampton, where I got the train. And there was probably one bus in every hour. And after the time, it would either come late or, even worse, early. So you just miss it entirely. Get to Wolverhampton, 2.5, basically like an hour and 20 minute, hour and a half train journey into a Euston station. And then Euston, I used to have another like 15, 20 minutes into City. And I used to do that there and back. So a good 2.5 hour journey, depending on bus times, every day, there and back, 6 days a week. So I used to get back at probably about just before midnight, up at 4, repeat the whole journey again. And that was my days when I started.
How long did you do that?
What a legend.
So it's probably about 2.5, 3 months. And then I had a client that I still trained, who I trained at his house way before I got the job at UP. And he obviously what I was going through was the only client I took left because everyone else was virgin. And he said he's got a cousin that lived in Acton Town. So I ended up sleeping on his floor for a couple of weeks until I found a flat in Shoreditch, which was an illegally sublet council flat. You paid a sneaky Colombian guy in a back alley £600 in cash, and you got to stay there. But it's a good deal, man. It got me a walk and work. It was a great deal. I was saying this to Ellie the other day. Not to plug money. I'm by far not a wealthy man, but I was like the only time where I've been comfortable with money, other than now, and at that time when I was a junior, and I wasn't earning much. It was just that I wasn't spending much because I did again sneaky Colombian backhanded rent. But if you want to go into this will go off topic of a fitness podcast. But if you want to go into sort of like London flats I've had the worst story.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. We can get into all that, Simon. We can get into all of that.
Yeah, exactly. That is epic. What was it, man? 6 or 7 times just getting rejected for the application and just came back one more time. What was it about UP that was like, I have to work here?
I mean, I was a proper fanboy. I was going to have all the T-shirts before I even got the job, right? I looked like I worked for UP, maybe not in terms of muscle mass and physique, but in terms of uniform before I even got the job. I think for me, it was like, I was at second year university. I was doing sport and exercise science, and I never really knew what I wanted to do with that degree. I actually knew I liked sport. I couldn't play rugby professionally, so I was like, okay, what do I do? So I went to sport and exercise science, and I just off the heels of my first long-term breakup, which, like every teenager that gets dumped for the first time, I went to a big spiral of mess, and it was embarrassing to nearly all my friends. And it went to the whole to a point where I used training and fitness in a way to sort of get me out of that hole. And I think that gave me the confidence again to start speaking to people and gain confidence again. And that's when I sort of looked into the personal trainer route. And there was two things. The first thing I wanted to do was be on the cover of Men's Health. And I wanted to enter the Men's Health cover model competition, which I did. Didn't get very far, but I have done it. And then the other one was I saw one of the earliest blog posts that UPF had put up about a horrible leg workout that Nick done, which I, as before I even saw, I think it was like Glenn and like probably Pete, Big Bush and Pete Katarski. I think, I'm not sure those names, might have even been Tom Whitehead, did this horrible leg workout. And I was just inspired by it. I love that everyone in that gym had incredible physiques. Had this presence. The results were unreal. And at that time, I was like, well, I don't just want to be a personal trainer and just be on the gym floor. I want to learn how to master my craft and be the best. And I decided to do that from day one. And that sort of hunger and drive has never really left me. Like, even when I came to UP, I felt, I've always had a bit of imposter syndrome, but I really had imposter syndrome walking into that gym where we had, like, Nick Daniel was a week out from his competition and he was crazy shredded. We had Justin McGuire, who was about 120 odd kilos, like lean South African beef. And then me being one of the smaller guys in that place. And I knew that I wanted to be, at one point, be the guy that was, not necessarily running the place, but certainly one of the people that was looked up to in terms of knowledge. So I knew I had to work hard. And that's why doing that journey didn't bother me so much. It was horrible, but it's just what you needed to do, right?
Yeah, man.
Get on with it.
Yeah. You got that passion, you're just going to drive through, and just doesn't matter what you're going to do. You're going to make it happen.
So, man, when you know your why, you can endure anyhow, right?
I felt in a way that I didn't deserve to be there. Yeah, I felt I didn't deserve to be there. So I thought that I had to outwork everybody because I wasn't, 120 kilos and it didn't have any results to my name. So I had to go do something that other people weren't willing to do. To even compete.
That's brilliant, man. That's brilliant. That's a great mentality to have. I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that. It's it's you knew you couldn't play the mass game, but then there's no limit on the knowledge game, and that's where your influence on me comes in, which is like me coming into UP, seeing accomplished trainers. But I remember kind of on day one, not being blown away by the gym floor, as in people training on the gym floor, not kind of thinking, oh, okay, people are pushing big weights, or because I didn't walk into Justin McGuire, I didn't walk into seeing Nick Daniel shredded to the bones, right? I walked into sometimes not trainers kind of doing their thing and whatever, right? But I did walk into trainers being solely about the process of helping their clients, and none more so than you, none more so than being super invested in knowing your clients, knowing them backwards, emailing them constantly, finding out what they are, finding out what kind of program is best for them. And that was like, wow, this guy is going above and beyond. And I think that you walking into that room, seeing those people, was the genesis of you. Probably wasn't genesis because you'd done this before. You were always about the process, but it was the thing that really set you apart at UP, and this is why you've stood the test of time. Like that's the effect it had on me, which was like, I'm super impressed by how this guy goes about his client process. That's amazing.
I think at the time, it's an element of fake it till you make it, because I think that I didn't really have a process. I was throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what worked. And I think a lot of the ethos now in terms of the way I think of education, which I think is a little bit different than a lot of what co-ed educators do. And I've learned that from looking back at where I struggled and where things didn't work. And for me, I spent a number of years bouncing between mentors, courses, and never really taking anything in, just been throwing out, taking little bits, but never really having that clear path. And then when I saw people that came into UP that did really well, and it's like, okay, often they're the people that didn't have as much imposter syndrome, that have a little bit of, I can't remember the name, it's a Diane Kruger effect, the one where people overestimate their abilities. But what those people did is, that's right, yeah. So they have this, because they overestimate their abilities, they just have this system. They didn't look elsewhere. They didn't overthink it. They just, bang, they had this system, and then they went for it. And these guys did really, really successful, where I was successful in my own way, but I was sort of fumbling through how to do things. And I think there's an element of like in every good answer, there's always a middle ground here. And I think those people may struggle down the line when they're not they get to something they don't understand, and they haven't got that ability to think critically, to push the boundaries, to think outside the box. But on the flip side, I think a lot of the times when we look at education in terms of trying to teach people like not all this knowledge first and this deep science with no application and no system, it just leaves people more lost and more confused. So like what I've done over the number of years is from a number of great mentors, is just over time finally got to the point where I've got a system of working. So now when I hopefully try and pass knowledge down the chain to, I get people to not waste time on the things that I did and not make the same mistakes I did by trying to give someone a system of working. So then when I layer knowledge onto that, they can take that knowledge and apply it onto something.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Framework first, and then put whatever you want in that framework, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can speak personally about you talked about is it Dunning-Kruger effect? I've not heard of that before, but the way you explained it made total sense in the sense that I knew when I walked into UP, I was definitely on that side of the argument, in the sense that I didn't have a process. I never really knew the details, but I always knew application. I always knew that's a barbell. We're going to go lift it until you get jacked. That's it, right? Like that was my only method. Whether you were female and 40% body fat, whether you were male and 10% body fat, we could be more jacked. We can get more tension. We can kind of go into this, right? And then luckily enough, this is I genuinely believe that I'm put in the room with people that are supposed to help me always, right? I certainly group both of you in that category for moving me forward in life, because I swear I'm just like Neanderthal that's now been taught to walk and talk and play the role by people like you two, right? And Simon definitely kind of like took me under his wing in that sense. Obviously first meeting at Tom's place, but then showing me how to kind of go through this, how to go through clients, how to go through diet. I remember you were the first person at UP who actually sent me information on nutrition, which was something that I knew nothing about. I mean, this is how little I knew about that. Was I swear I had done my case study, and actually I didn't know anything past 9 calories per gram, 4 calories per gram, 4 calories per gram. I literally didn't know anything past that. Carb cycling, this, that, high days, low days, reload, back feeding, front loading, all this bullshit, nothing, right? And Si was the first person who actually said, "Oh, I can send you some information on this." And I was like, wow, this is the only person, and legit. And there's a lot of shared information in that place, but sometimes it wasn't too forthcoming. But then you got somebody who's like, "Oh, I can help you. I can help you. I can." Just being so forthcoming with it just makes somebody feel super comfortable, and that's why now you're talking about bringing other trainers through. It gives me so much confidence to know that the way you're doing it right now is a massive success. And like any, if I can give a piece of advice to any trainer out there, young, old, wherever in the industry, this guy can help you. Simon Dutton can help you move forward. He can help you move forward. He can help your clients move forward, help them, help their families, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. Right. So, if he's speaking, listen. Simply put.
I think the thing that it goes into the other foot as well, though, right? Like, I think at the moment RTS is, for example, right, is the big thing, right? Everyone's doing RTS. Everyone's looking at exercise mechanics, and I am a massive mechanics nerd.
What's
RTS? Resistance training specialist. So Tom Purvis, really incredibly smart guy in America, created this course called RTS. It's also taught by Michael Goulden with Integra, which is well worth going to listen to Michael. If you want to learn how to think critically about exercise, Michael Goulden is your guy. And this is not bashing RTS in any stretch of imagination. I'm a massive nerd for the exercise mechanics route, but it's almost attracted to a degree the people that you know. There's a select few people that have managed to take this with real world application and put it together and apply it how it should be applied. But there's also a lot of people that take it now going so far into the mechanics route that they never do what Umar just said earlier on about picking up a barbell, training hard, creating tension, work ethic. And I think that's often quite missed where you don't sort of match these things. And I know that in my education, I've wavered that line of sometimes being a bit too cautious with learning through things, maybe throwing caution to wind a little bit too much with other things, and just because of where I was in terms of my education. And I think in the same way that maybe Umar learned sort of systems and education from me, I certainly learned from both Umar and the big dudes that I went and trained with, if work ethic with regards to training. Now, I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I'm probably about 10 kilos bigger than I was when I first walked into a UP gym. And that certainly come from, just this, I've trained smarter. But hands down, if I had to pick one of the two, training harder has definitely been the thing that's got me there.
Right.
That's really interesting, man. Really interesting. I wonder how that would sit with a lot of people kind of learning a lot of the stuff they're learning nowadays, isn't it? There's a time and a place for everything. But I just think like TJ has a great way with this, and he's just like, do it. Just do it. Like, just be about doing it. And then you can read about it, and you can go to the application days, and you can figure out how to manipulate the cams and work out the perfect drop off and look at the joint angles and everything like that. That's fine, great, fantastic. But the moment that starts detracting from the work, and usually find that the people that make the most progress while knowing all that stuff are like still the guys in the gym who are busting their asses. Like we talk about like Callum and the muscle mentors, and shout out to Alex, the muscle mentors. These are the guys that are actually just putting tissue on people's frames with applying this knowledge. It's like if you're on the end of the curve and you're like talking about putting 10 kilos on in a couple of years, if you haven't done that to yourself, you're not moving forward. You're learning things, but you're just not moving forward in this realm, which is supposed to be the goal, right? It's supposed to be the goal of learning precise exercise mechanics, is so that you can actually put somebody into a machine, make them move better, make them feel better by making them train hard and making them train efficiently. So yeah, you're missing the point.
I think if there's a title of this podcast, it was going to be something like the answer's always in the middle, right? You'll get the people that, as you said, they're paralysis by analysis, and they spend so much time studying stuff they never actually apply it on the gym floor. And then you've got the other people that throw caution to the wind and understand that most people that are big, that teach exercise mechanics, probably didn't get big doing this exercise mechanics stuff. Most of the people are really, really good at exercise mechanics now is because they've trained a certain way hard, realized it messed the joints up a little bit, and now retrospectively going, well, now how do I sort my elbows out through the straight barbell curls when I can't supinate at all? And now I'm doing straight barbell curls because Arnie did it. And people will criticize both ends of that spectrum. But it's not necessarily a bad thing that that they're trying to work smarter now and save their joints. There's a lot of knowledge in there. And also maybe they should have done it when they were 21 and get the same results, if not better results. But also you've got to take that advice a little bit of pinch of salt, knowing that the advice they're giving now might not have been the advice that got them there in the first place. And Nick Daniels always said this as well, right? If you never ever pick up a niggle, you're probably not training hard enough. Now you shouldn't be destroyed at 21 with broken all the time, but like if you don't pick up anything, you're probably not trying to respond to get a good stimulus.
The way I kind of look at that as well is that training also smokes out your weaknesses. So it's like I could be sitting here and doing nothing, and I feel like I'm good in my body, and then as soon as I start putting some stress on it, it's like, oh wait, you know what? You got this going on here, which isn't doing too well, or you got that going on, which isn't doing too well. All right, I'm going to go fix that. I'm going to become stronger, more functional, and then I'm going to keep adding more stress to the system so I can become more and more resilient. That's how I kind of look at those niggles and those injuries. It's like, okay, my body's telling me something that I want to push to the next level. I'm not quite there yet. I need to take care of this. I take care of this. I'm able to break through that next level. Then the next thing will show me like where it's next thing will come up where it's like, okay, this is the next thing you need to take care of. And you keep doing that. It's an iterative process. You get better and better and better. You get stronger and stronger and stronger in your body by addressing it that way.
Yeah, and I think that's why like the popularity of like Jordan Shallow has become so big, because he takes that therapist world and understands that okay, you can get someone out of pain, but until you actually put them in an area of stress, you don't see where these things break down. What he has managed to do very, very successfully is take a powerlifting background and understand what happens when you place load on a structure, and then okay, now how can we sort that? And the guy and Umar's done PS level 1, and I know you're just started PS level 1. You can vouch for how smart that guy is, right? But like, as you quite rightly said, until you put a level of stress on something, you don't really know what weaknesses are. So like, you maybe if you take somebody through like a phase of training, you get someone. Most people I deal with are broken, to say the least, right? From 30, 40 years of sports and poor posture and desk work and chronic inflammation, things like this. But maybe you spend the first 2 or 3, phases of training broadly getting them stable and maybe being a little bit safer. But there's got to be a point then where you've got to then go, right, okay, now we've covered the big rocks of their programming and their stability. Well, we've got to test it and find out where our focus needs to lie.
Yeah, Exactly. And to that point that Umar made about you're put in the room with people because they're supposed to make you better is I totally feel you on that front, because this is one thing I was which I love about the relationship that we have is like, you're coming from that end of the spectrum is like, I'm going to put you under the barbell and we're going to keep putting tension on until you just get bigger, and I'm coming from the other end of the spectrum, which is you need to take care of yourself. Let's sort out all your weaknesses first and then build you up. And for sure I was stuck in that a little bit too much, where it was just a bit too cautious with people. And so we've been on that journey where I'm looking to push more into that end that you're at, and you're trying to bring yourself to the end that I'm at, and we're kind of like crossing over in the middle. And we're just accumulating all that information. So it's like I'm picking up stuff from you guys and just what you're saying there as well, as much as I'm helping you out on that front as well. And that's been a huge thing for me, because it just gives me a lot more confidence to realize that as long as I've been in the game and as much as I can help people, there's always something else that I could be better at. And it's a part of changing your mind for how you also get results and build resilience in people is I think is a big thing to consider.
It makes you better. It makes you better as well. Like it's always good to have people that make you like creatively stimulated, that they can bounce ideas off. Not always going to be yes men to. It's always good, I've had many conversations with Umar about this. We've bounced ideas off each other of different things, and it goes all the way to the top, right? Like success leaves clues. There was a great podcast I listened to, London Real episode, I think, with Coach Somner, who made gymnastic bodies, and he was at loggerheads with Stuart McGill for years, because someone was always about, okay, when in sport and in life are you going to be in a neutral spine? Where Stuart McGill is about neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine. Now, neither of those are wrong. One deals with athletes, understanding that movement and dynamic movement and everything outside of the sagittal plane is still, you need to train that resilience. Whereas, McGill, who's training 50, 60-year-old women with disc herniations, maybe a neutral spine's good. And because of this, they were polarizing for years, and eventually, when they started to hash it out and communicate, they realized that the answer was in the middle and it was case dependent. And I think the more you can get yourself out of your comfort zone and interact with people that either have a difference of opinion or challenge you, it's the only way of making you better. The easiest way to stay stagnant is not have people that make you that challenge you.
Yeah, isn't it like McGill? He was also dealing with just a lot of fucked up backs as well, basically. So he's like Brian Carroll, who's just got basically no discs left. He's completely shot to pieces, but it's helping him rehabilitate, and then comes back to a place where he can actually break world records in the weightlifting scene or powerlifting. And so he's like, we need to ensure neutral spine, because like he's coming from that end of the spectrum, which is, I'm just seeing a lot of mess. So we need to fix that. And then I can't remember, is Coach Somers? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And then coming out from the other angle, it's like, well, actually, I'm not dealing with fucked up people, and I see a lot of movement through the spine. And all right, how are we gonna figure out an answer which is in between what we're both saying? So that's I think that's.
And then you got the RTS perspective. The RTS perspective, where it's like you haven't got an X-ray. You can't see what shape someone's spine in.
Yeah.
So what's my neutral? What's your neutral is going to be an entirely different thing, right? So, I think learning more how to assess and learning more the individual differences in people become huge there. Like, okay, what is your neutral? And then what can you do? What's your capability? Now we can try and fix issues and try and let's say if you're overly kyphotic, we could do stretching the pecs and working on your T-spine extension and get your lower traps engaged. And that may help. And if it does, fantastic. But we can try it, understanding that, in our program, we've worked around that. So that's not a hindrance to our program. So if it doesn't get better, if your spine is just that shape, we know pretty quick that this ain't working. Okay, we just need to work around what is your structural limitation.
Yeah. And
true.
Structural limitations versus functional limitations, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's the one. I remember having it explained, like, it's on a spectrum, right? Everything is on a spectrum. Right? Who said that first? It was Poliquin who said that first, I think, or I remember him saying it first.
So many things that are probably Poliquin in some way, shape, or form, and so many things that are Poliquin are probably Olympic lifting coaches from 100 years ago.
Yeah,
popularized
exactly.
Right,
exactly.
so like they all have. It's like they all. This maybe shows my age here, but do you remember like at there was in old like 80s and 90s movies, there was always 7 separations from Kevin Bacon. Like if you name an actress, there'd always be 7 separations from Kevin Bacon. There's 7 separations from Charles Poliquin.
Yeah.
Everywhere. The guy's legacy will live on for years.
That's it. He's like Ramesses of lifting. That guy.
The guy was phenomenal. He was controversial, but like he popularized. Like there wouldn't be a UP without Charles Poliquin.
Yeah,
a lot of things we do. Yeah,
that's the guy that got me to join UP. Charles Poliquin was because I genuinely thought that because if you went on the UP website back in the day, he was the head of education, right? And well, there you go, Si. You got big shoes to fill there, right? I mean, he was the global head of like what was it? I swear it was education. I swear it was education, or it was something along those lines. And
I don't even think he was actually directly affiliated with UP. No. I think he was just an old mentor of Nick's, and
exactly.
And he did a lot of these like education for UP trainers. Because I did bioprint in Marbella with him, which was one of the later courses of Charles Poliquin's career. And anyone that's been on a seminar with Charles knows that he's either really engaged or he's really not. And both times are entertaining, but they're in different ways. And with this, I think he'd given up on bioprint at that point. Like he'd fall asleep in the middle of the UP Marbella gym, and then he'd come back late to every section, and then just tell stories about his weightlifting. And I remember, I'm talking about controversial, right? So we're all there with our eyeliner, pencils, and like marking people up to the perfect levels. And he'd like just go with his hands, grab someone's subscap and go like. He started off nice and went 26. And then someone measured it with calipers and it'd be pretty much 26 every time. He'd just go with his hands and feel it. And then by the end of the weekend, when he was clearly bored,
you're talking about body fat, yeah.
Yeah, he'd grab someone's hamstring measurement and just go, fat. And that was it. Just like, that's it, just too much. And I was like, guy's head goes down and walks out.
That's the way, like.
So entertaining.
You listen to Mark Coles's podcast on, Mark Coles's episode on RX Radio. And he talks about the effect that Charles had on him by saying to him that he basically wasn't big enough and his squat was probably shit. And it's like going into a room with somebody who puts you, oh my God, like puts you under pressure, forces you to change. It just ties back into what we were talking about before. Like you need that pressure from somebody to call you on your bullshit almost, and be like, okay, well, can we affect this structure in some other way? Can we affect this learning process in some other way? And at the end of the day, it's only going to move you forward.
And talking about like going back again to what we were talking before about having education via a system, like it's not done very often. And I'm certainly not the first person to think this way. I mean, Poliquin was the master of it. Teach you how to do GBC, and then I'll teach you why. Teach you how to take caliper readings, and then we'll teach you why. Rather, rather than what we see a lot now in terms of education, when we'll have 5 or 6 weeks of like deep dive into anatomy because you need to understand the science before you understand what you're doing. Yeah, but that's gone so in one ear and out the other that by the time you get to applying it, the person's just lost. We've probably all had times where we've been struggling to understand anatomy, and all of a sudden we'll have a client on a hamstring curl, and all of a sudden you'll just see it, and you go, that's how the hamstrings work. It's because you've got someone on a hamstring curl, you've seen it, you've understood, but you visualized it, and then when you go back to studying it, now you can reference it. So like the way I like to work with people now, the more like people think that everything should be completely tailored and personalized. I agree with this, but I think if you never have any systems whatsoever, you have too many things, and I've seen trainers spend hours and hours and hours trying to work out the most perfect macro split for a client. I was like, just put them on something. Everything you do as an educator, get them to do it, and then you adjust and learn from what happens. Yeah. And the same thing applies when it comes to sort of weight training. It's like, okay, there's a million training systems that will work for this client right now. Let's create a system where we find the biggest common denominator. What's going to work with 70% of your clients? What system works for you? Now, what system works for me might be very different to what works for your client. So for me, I have something that I'll call essentially like a reset phase. Where in that time, it's probably going to be full body workouts, probably going to be higher reps. It's going to be exercise that challenge muscles at the most length and most shortened range. It's going to be a lot of external stability, a lot of counter force work, a lot of machine work to get to learn how to create tension on a muscle. In that time, I'm using nutrition, probably start low carb, teach them how to fuel it, teach them how to utilize nutrition better, and then getting their health markers in a good space so they can utilize more fluid, blood pressure, resting heart rate, things like this, right? So, that may be how I work with a beginner client. And over time, I'll start to progress those into more big lifts. But because I've now gotten stronger at the extremities and got them stable, by the time I get into a squat, it shouldn't be terrible. I should have Tequila. But if you're working, for sake of argument, with a, like say, a footballer, and you've got on the season, you may not want to train like high intensity hamstrings the day before, a game, because you might tear a hamstring. Maybe a system that involves something like daily undulating periodization and different exercise selection might be good for you. But it's finding that system that, okay, we've ironed out this system, and like, you don't need to know the ins and outs of why it works yet. Just get experiencing it with clients, get using it. And now you're in the trenches doing stuff. As we teach you stuff, I can then go, this is why this works with what you're doing. So you have an immediate reference point and it immediately goes in and they can immediately apply it, rather than trying to teach all this. And by the time you've taught all this knowledge, you've gone and tried to apply it. You've forgotten half the stuff you learned at the start. It's got to be this fluid process as you're learning stuff as you're applying it. But I've learned so much by becoming more into the education and the mentoring space, because I have to take something I learn and be able to explain it to somebody who's got half the experience that I do. And all of a sudden, now I then explain it better to my clients. I apply it better with my clients. And that's not a coincidence. Whereas I think a lot of times a lot of courses miss the boat because they focus too heavy on the ego of, and ego being the good word, of educating people and sounding smart, but actually really not helping somebody where they're at.
Yeah, man. Best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah. Most people are lost.
Yeah.
Most people are lost. They can't see the forest through the trees.
But it's a case of like different ways of learning, right, as well. So you look at like tactile, like kind of touching something, feeling something, actually being there and knowing that, oh shit, I have to really brace on this hamstring curl, otherwise it's not going to go anywhere. Like I have to really use the machine. Oh, it's made this way for a reason. These handles, they're here for a reason, but we can actually hold it this way, and we can go at this in so many different ways. But sitting in a classroom and kind of banging your head against the wall, it's gonna, like you said, it's gonna make you so much more. It's going to almost remove you from the process, because the process is on the gym floor. So get on the gym floor. Like that's where we need to be. You know what I mean? That's we can come back to the theory, or we can actually have more basis for understanding the theory once we have some practical application.
Exactly. And then when you look at anatomy is a great example, right? So like when I look at teaching anatomy, there's a time and a place for literally just origins and insertions. Get a band or a balloon and pull it to these kind of things. And there's a time and a place that in some ways, but I would look at teach them what they do on the gym floor, teach them a base layer of anatomy. It doesn't need too much. You need to go roughly from here to here. What's the action? Get on the gym floor, feel how it works. Then go more into the sort of science-based stuff. And your aim then is to make that as practical as possible. So, quickly as I can get away from the skeleton with a balloon, and maybe more come, right, if I'm teaching a classroom full of people, okay, you spent the first day learning about how to put a program together for your clients. You've gone on the gym floor, how to get the most out of these exercises, what muscles are going to be used, and then maybe like in the afternoon session or the second day or second week, however your education structure runs, you then maybe have the morning going over the knowledge of it and understanding origins and insertions and why those things work the way they did, and you're now referencing that first session and go, oh, that's why that works. Okay, that makes sense. And then you go back to something a bit more practical again with a little bit more knowledge. So you could say, I quite like, when I'm teaching a group of guys, is like, okay, we're going to go into a muscle. Let's say this group does pecs, this group does quads, this group does hamstrings. And I want you to go away for 50 minutes. I'm not going to get involved. I'm going to stand back and be quiet, because my ego's not wrapped up in being Mr. Smart Guy. It's you will come up with origin, insertion, action, a muscle that trains lengthen, shorten, and mid-range, and you will come back together in 20 minutes. And in that, you've now created something that's a little bit more play. But if you didn't do the gym floor stuff first, and if you didn't do a little bit of the knowledge first, you just have people that wouldn't do anything and be lost. But the idea of going is application, knowledge, so that you can then reference the knowledge back to that application, and then go back to a little bit more detailed application again. So now you're reinforcing things, and then, tell them to go and play around on machines and find something that challenges length and range. Think outside the box. Don't necessarily doesn't have to be dumbbell flies, cable flies, push-ups. It could be, whatever your imagination makes it then.
Yeah, you're literally meeting the students at their level, rather than kind of bringing them in and being like, oh, this is how I learn, or this is how I want to teach you. It's like, what got them in the room in the first place? Because they want to have bigger biceps. So go and train their biceps. Go and get them to feel this stuff, and then talk to them about it. And kind of, we can actually meet on some common ground that they need to be on. But for me to sit on my high horse and try and bring you to where I know ultimately you need to do, it's not the way, because no one come into that room to sit down and have a lecture about everything else, but they did come into the room to learn about training. And this is something that Nick Daniel used to do really well with his UP camps when he was teaching. That was that you'd go in straight away, you'd meet everybody, say hello, all of a sudden, bang, you're on the floor. You're doing breathing drills, you warming yourself up, and we're going to go into our first neurological session of the day. We're going to do some heavy ass back squats. Okay, cool. Let's get straight into it. And then afterwards, when you're a bit smashed, but like you're trying to stay awake and you're trying to knock back some coffees, it's okay. Let's talk about what we just did. Let's we'll go through the process, and now we can break it down. And everyone's like, "Oh shit, this is amazing!" And then before you know it, we're back into a session again, and we're back into another session, and then we're going to talk about it again. And it was so much. It's forced upon you, but in a way that it's so palatable that you just take it in.
And if you think as well, like if you look at the best clients that you've ever had in terms of clients as well as trainers you've mentored, the place you want to get them to, all the best clients end up going all in on a process. They don't question it; they just go the act, right? And eventually, what we're looking to teach somebody, whether it's somebody coming in wanting to be better at their job and being a better personal trainer, or whether it's somebody wanting to get a better physique, you eventually want to get them to a point where they can critically think for themselves, right? That they can analyze things, they can run with things, they can solve problems. You don't want people that are zombies and clones. You want people that can actually critically think about the task at hand. But to do that, often you have to break them down a little bit and take the ego out of the equation, because everyone comes in with their own biases and everyone comes in with their own egos. And often our ego is going to be the biggest thing that prevents us from learning anything. And a lot of times it's taking away what you think you know and learning about something. And to do that, you need to strip somebody back and you need to just give them a system work and say, just do. Just go all in. Just act. And it's all about action here. And then we layer on the why. Now you understand the process that the person that is educating you is wanting you to do. You understand that truly. Now you know the knowledge of why that works. And now we can bring in your experience and your confirmation bias and your ego and put this together to critically think. And in both ways, you might find that mentee now has an amalgamation of what they've learned from you and other people, but it now becomes their system. It's not, they have a million programs, they have no idea what to do, where do I start, and they sit on the house.
Yeah, man. So what do you reckon is that like a minimum amount of knowledge that is required to make sure the application is on point? And then because the application is essentially the playground, when you've got that playground going on, like you're saying, is firing up the brain so that you can actually learn something, and you're wanting to think critically, so you're going to ask questions because you've gone into the playground and had to play with this stuff, and then come back and then learn the knowledge. There's always like a minimum amount that you need to go into that playground with. What do you reckon that is?
That's a hard question, because I think when it comes to minimum amount of knowledge, it depends who I'm teaching.
Right.
I think I have a bunch of personal trainers. I was doing my own standalone seminar, which is just me, of brand new trainers. I mean, like, you expect most people to have some level of training experience, and they're coming in wanting to be better trainers. So we're talking about trainers here. Even if it's clients, the idea of breaking them down and breaking the ego away is you don't really need that much of a minimum knowledge barrier to kind of get started. If anything, sometimes it's better when you don't, because there isn't as much confirmation bias. People are more willing to get stuck in. As long as they're in a position where they want to learn, they want to go all in, and they want to go away and take what they've learned and try and work it out themselves. And that just comes down to the mentality of the individual. I think the idea of the educator is being able to have the knowledge of their experience to know what is the most important things they need to do and learn first. Now, if we're looking at a training seminar, you maybe focus more on machines, but you can make people externally stable, teach them about a counterforce, teach them how, what muscle they need to engage, teach them actually how to perform the movement, whether it's touch cues, internal cues, external cues, whatever it is, so you can start to feel what's going on and then understand what we're trying to do here. then we can layer on knowledge. Alternatively, then, I think that's the minimum effective knowledge to actually come into a seminar. Now, when it comes to minimum effective, if you were looking at minimum effective knowledge to be competent in this industry, that's where I have almost a different level of opinion. But I think I'm relatively good at taking complex, and Umar can say if I am or not, but complex topics and make them relatively simple. But I still get the occasional thing of like, don't overcomplicate it, don't make it too deep, and I'm like, I don't speak it too deep. I speak at the relevant layer of knowledge that you should need to be good at your craft.
Yeah.
So I don't think necessarily you have to have a minimum level of knowledge to come in and learn to be a personal trainer. But if you're trying to spend, if you've got clients spending 80, 90, 100, 110 quid an hour to train with you, putting their health in your hands when they potentially have injuries, if you know nothing about anatomy, if you cannot tell me how fat gets from the cells to out the cell, and don't just tell me calorie deficit, then I worry. You wouldn't have that in any other field. You wouldn't go to a hairdresser who can't hold a pair of scissors. You wouldn't go to have a chef who can't work an oven. Yet in the fitness industry, when you have no barrier to entry, 6 weeks courses, and unlimited retakes until you get it right, we have people that are, and this is why a lot of the personal training industry gets such a bad rap, is because we have people are investing lots of money in their health and their safety, and the person has no idea other than what their favorite fitness model does on Instagram, which is awful. And what I'm essentially wanting to do is just get people who really want to learn. And I'm not necessarily going to be the guy that's going to be out there competing with Jordan Shallow and chiropractors and osteos, things like this. That's not my place in the industry. My place in the industry is getting trainers that are that 6 months to a year in the industry that want to separate themselves from the crowd and want to be better than the bad reputation. And I want to get them to a point where they have such a clarity and confidence of the way they work and have a base layer of effectiveness where they can train their clients effectively, safely to get results, where then they can go, well, maybe I'll try this PS level 1 because that may help me. And now I've got a little bit of knowledge where Jordan's not going to start speaking, it's going to go over his head. Go and do Muscle Nerds Program Design course. Go and do RTS. Go and join UP. It's getting that level of knowledge where you are sufficient at your job to know a base layer of education, so then you can deep dive into learning about yourself, which I know from, I'm sure you guys can vouch, the most exciting thing about going to seminars half the time is not saying that any of the education I've had is bad, but it's meeting people like how I met Umar, and I've met tons of people from these courses. You tend to see the same people on these courses time and time again, and it's always the same people. It's just people want to better themselves in the industry. So the more time you can spend, and the more people we can get at that level, the better the industry is for everybody.
100%.
I'll definitely say like that. You asked the question, G, about baseline level of knowledge, but I'd say it's what Simon just said there, which is people that want to better themselves. It's like you don't need to know anything almost. Sometimes, like I remember how bad I was before I started UP. Like there was no understanding because I didn't really stick with things long enough to actually understand them properly. But then TJ said this thing the other day. He was talking about how like you're almost forgotten how to learn because sometimes the process of actually learning isn't something that you're too familiar with. But then the process, the want to be better, the want to affect people, the want to have somebody's life in your hands and leave them positively affected by having spent time with you, that's the prerequisite in my opinion. Like, do you really need to know this? Yes. Okay. Well, you'll be in the room and you'll be paying attention. And when it's time to take notes, you'll take notes. And when it's time to shut up and just listen, you'll do that too. You know what I mean? That's the only thing in my opinion. Like knowledge wise, for sure, pick up an anatomy book and know what a skeleton looks like and know what people can walk in with. But past that, I really just think it's a case of just give a shit about wanting to be better, and you will be.
Yeah, it was more like
I think it's a balance. Sorry, man, to interrupt. I think it's more of that balance. Like it's like there's no minimum effective knowledge to want to learn more. It's just taking away your ego and wanting it to be better, but always understanding there is a responsibility to your clients, and that the actual base layer of knowledge is astronomically high. I think a personal trainer is one of the hardest jobs in the world, and I'm not doing anything at physios or anything else or any other conversation, but you have to be this amazing jack of all trades to be a personal trainer. You have to know a decent amount of anatomy to take knowledge that, someone who has niggles, injuries, and movement restrictions, and get them to train in a way it's not only going to be safe and effective, but also get the desired outcome from that training session. You need to understand someone's psychology to work around their hang-ups with food, and to get them to follow a plan, and to get them to be patient, which is a difficult thing. You've got to know enough about biochemistry and nutrition to understand what you're doing and what you're giving to somebody when you're pushing them too hard. Then you've got to have experience of actually getting people in shape to actually do this again. And I think a personal trainer is an amazingly hard job, because it's, you might not have to go as deep into anatomy as a chiro and osteophysio is. You may not have to go as much into biochemistry as an endocrinologist. You may not have to go as much into psychology as a therapist. But you've got to know a fairly decent amount about all of these things. To not only give a better service to your clients, but also to know when to refer out and to be able to understand the information that's given back to you. When I sent people to physios and endocrinologists when I first started, I used to get information back, and I was too egotistical and proud and of an imposter to go, oh, I don't know what that means. And the two things I need to learn from there is, one, I need to get better at my craft, so I understand when a physio gives me exercises, I know what he's doing and why he's doing it, so I can then reinforce that with the client. And let's face it, probably won't do it as much on their own as you tell them to. And also I also need to be able to devoid my ego from the equation, where I can happily tell both people who are up the chain and down the chain that I don't know. And I think if there's one thing trainers should be more happy to say, is that I don't know something. A lot though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And because you're in the part of business, part of the industry where you're educating people. I'm quite curious to know your thoughts on this as well, because the ability to learn, right, and how to learn well. So I feel like we've had this discussion on previous podcasts me and Umar have about how school in many ways just doesn't set you up very well, because it's like you're learning a bunch of things which you're supposed to be able to regurgitate, but one thing I don't think I really learned how to do was learn. I didn't learn how to learn. So so I'm on a quest to figure that out all over again, is just how to do this, how to approach something in a way where I'm going to get the result that I need from it, or the outcome that I want from it, which is something that is productive as well, and something that sticks. What do you have any thoughts around that kind of thing, on what is the best way to learn, how to learn?
I think it's something I'm learning as well, right? Is learning how to learn better. I agree with you. I was pretty certain that I was dyslexic. Never officially told I was, but I used to get B's and D's back to front all the time. I used to get numbers the wrong way around. I still struggle with reading. I read very, very, very slow. And my punctuation is awful. If everyone's ever read an email that I've sent, they've probably hated it, right? But so I think we're not taught well in education. I think partly for things we spoke about before, it's learning how to regurgitate information with no practical application. We're not taught subjects we need to learn. I wish I was taught finance, because I've been horrendous at it through my 20s. But we're not taught finance. We're not really taught business. We're not taught how to critically think. We're just taught information. But I mean, how much of that is the education system, and how much of that is the teacher you get in front of you? Some people get really lucky with amazing teachers, and my partner's a teacher, and and obviously I'm a little bit biased, but I think she is one of the best teachers I've ever seen in my whole entire life, because she generally cares so much about a job, and she has this knack to connect with children. And I reckon, if I was a kid and had her, I may have applied myself more and learned more. So I don't know how much of that is the education system's wrong, or just some people just get lucky and have teachers that resonate with them better than you do. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to learn, how to learn. I think one thing that I've learned more as I've got older, especially as I've got busier, this may be different for the school system, but is knowing your strengths and playing to your strengths, and not sort of not doing your weaknesses, but because there's certain weaknesses you need to get better at, and there's parts of your job you just don't like or not good at, and you need to suck up and get on with. But the more you can sort of systemize your weaknesses, so they're not as big a part of your day, so you can spend more time on your strengths. That's how you truly learn. I've, maybe I will, I don't know, but I'm very unlikely to be the person writing an Amazon best-selling book. I'm rubbish at punctuation. I struggle to read myself. I'm not suited to it. But, fingers crossed, maybe I'll get myself on a TED Talk one day because I'm relatively good at public speaking. I'm quite a good people person. So I rather than try to learn everything, could I go down and be really good at this one avenue? And like, it's the whole thing of like, if you teach a fish, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, analogy, right? As I get older, I think it's more accentuating your strength. And then finding the right educator when you're a kid. Or an adult. Why some people resonate with other mentors better than others.
Yeah. What you said there at the end there definitely hits with me. But with sometimes you look at the potentially like, I don't want to say bad teachers, because I think teachers defo try, but sometimes they aren't in the right place to teach because of their own lives and because of the people and because of the way they've come into the room. But they're almost setting the stage for us now to be like, we've had a deficit of knowledge then, so how do we go about learning now? You know what I mean? So without those less than optimal educators, we probably wouldn't be sat here right now. You know what I mean? We'd be sat in some other walk of life. But it's a cool way of definitely breaking it down. But go on, Zach. Go on.
So as I'm looking back on what we were saying earlier on about learning to apply things first, getting you interested in the topic so you want to apply something. I think essentially most of the learning is done outside of the classroom. It's making you excited enough to go and put the work in behind the scenes. It's not just the hour you spend learning about it. Now, when we talk about application first and then layer on knowledge, this is where this comes in. And I look back at the education I have now. Do I mention names? I won't mention the bad teacher. I'll mention the teacher. I don't want to get someone in trouble. But like,
fuck you, Mrs. Smith.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just call him Mr. Lacan. We can change one letter in that. We'll find out the right one, right? So anyone who went to Allendale High School and the rest can crack the code of Mr. Lacan. Hated those science lessons. Hated them with a passion. He was stern. He most of the time he just told off. It was either the colored kid, the kid with learning disabilities, and then it was probably me because I was the one misbehaving. But I was always third, even if I was the one misbehaving in the first place. This is the kind of mentality. There was a lesson once where he goes, we were talking about electrical currents and circuits, right, in physics. He was like, today we're going to learn about AC/DC, but not the band for all you young hipsters out there. That's him trying to be funny. This is in the early 2000s. Most kids, other than me, who has the music tastes from the 60s, didn't even know who AC/DC was, right? Yeah. So this is the kind of guy we're talking. On the flip side of that, we had Mr. Wilkinson, and that is his real name because he was a phenomenal teacher. Whereas you knew it was a good, maybe I shouldn't say this about what I'm about to say, if he's still teaching, but you knew it was a good lesson where you'd see him newspaper up the fire extinguisher, right? Because you knew you were going to do some interesting shit, like blow things up and make sparks fly. But I tell you what, I got interested in biochemistry because of matching the human body to these weird sort of experiments that you did. And that made me want to learn more about what I did. Getting lectured in the front with very, very outdated jokes from a guy without his real teeth didn't make me want to learn, right? And and there's a reason why in Mr. Wilson classes people stayed and were really, really riveted, even on the last day of term before summer. There's also a reason why in this other science teacher's class, when there was a window open, by the end of the lesson, half the kids had jumped out the window and ran away before the lesson. That generally happens. So it sums up. Good teachers make education. Amazing. Bad teachers ruin it.
Yeah, fully, man.
That's legit. They actually make you want to stay in the room rather than just jump out the window.
Exactly.
Too right. Where are you at now, Si, in terms of just pivoting but stay on the education side of things? In regards to your own education, where do you want to take it, and what are you excited to learn over the next kind of couple of years?
My education in terms of me personally?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've just finished Muscle Nerds program design course with Luke Lehman team, which was really good. And I'll tell you what, the best thing about that course is it really taught me to think critically about my own system, how I work. And that's now developed a lot of things that I'm talking to you guys about and the way I think about education and things like this. You know, it's all come from some of the stuff that I've learned there. And they teach you, it's great. You know, one of those courses where you don't realize how valuable it is until you finish it. I remember finishing finishing the program design course. I'm like, it feels like there's something missing here. It feels like they teach you all the framework to make a great program, but they don't teach you how to make a great program. I'm sort of going, what am I missing something? I was like, is it the in-person part, which I couldn't go to because of travel restrictions right now? But in hindsight, and it probably is, they probably put it all together when I get onto the in-person part of this course. But in hindsight, that was the best thing ever, because I then had to go and fill in the blanks that were left blank in my mind. And then I always had them to answer questions when I struggled. And their forums now are fantastic. People are really, of all walks of life, are great. A lot of people that are on the PS Level 1 forum are on this forum. It's the same crowd, right? Yeah. And, you know, so there was this question. It's allowed me to sort of fill in our blanks and start to then piece together what I have. So I'm at the moment in time finishing this course. I'm now going through a period of application. So it's more in system making. So I've been using this time during the gym lockdown to write tons of programs. Something that me and Umar have gotten a few calls and hopefully a few more calls soon to sort of plan some of these ideas out as well. But it's piecing together what I've learned from different sources and putting them on paper. So it's pulling back, maybe saving a little bit of money, which my other half be very happy about, to sort of like putting together what I've practiced, start to apply more, create systems to make me more efficient the way I work, and to really like apply what I work. Because I also feel that, you know, in an interesting topic as well, I think people say that they don't like systems and templates when it comes to programming because they think templates mean it's not a personal service. No, I wholeheartedly disagree with that the more I learn, because I think that if I have to make for every single set, rep, exercise, angle, tempo from scratch with every single program, and I have 24 hours to have a turnaround with your program, I'm going to do not my best work, because the amount of thought that goes into my programming, like, you know, if I have time, is astronomical. It's positions, what range of motion we have, what the active range, what's the passive range, where's the stability, you know, what's the training age history, what's the stress level, what's the information, what tempos do I need, where are they weak, where are they strong. All these things and more come into a program. Now, if I'm trying to do that right from scratch, a blank piece of paper with every one, I don't have the time to do that. Whereas if I can spend time creating, you know, tons of templates with all my knowledge, I can spend hours putting together this almost perfect program, and then I can adjust it for the individual. One, it means the client gets a much, much more comprehensive program based on my experience and my education. But it also means that now my program writing doesn't take as long. So now I can spend time where it really matters, and that's speaking to you and actually having an emotional, personal connection with you about how to do this program. Because I can write the best program in the world, and if you don't do it and there's no compliance to it, it's useless. So if I can combine the two by taking the time to make a phenomenal program that I just adjust for if you can't do a military press because your T-spine sucks, I have an 80-degree dumbbell. It's now a personalized program to your range of motion, but it's now geared to a very, very specific outcome, and I can spend time then teaching you it. Same thing with nutrition. If most people say, oh, what's the perfect macro split for this, and this? Make a meal plan, gear it to, as you said, a continuum, give it to where you feel that person is in terms of their lifespan of training, get that plan out to them, and then you can spend more time teaching them to meal prep, teaching them the habits that need to be put into place, teaching them how to overcome decision fatigue, teaching them how to overcome the all or nothing mentality. These things will make and break a result far more than consume 30 grams of protein post-workout via a shake form with 30 grams of brand dextrin. It's majoring in the minor. So I'm now taking what I've learned. I'm now trying to piece together things in my head so I can actually apply it, so that when I go into a next course, I'm not still trying to unravel. There'll probably be the reason why I didn't jump on PS Level 1 this intake. I might do the next one or the one after that, because then I'll be in a better place to learn something new. That's I'm consolidating. Let's just say that.
Yeah, solid answer, man. Solid answer.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's actually, I like what you're saying there as well, because that's even helpful for me as well. Like just coming up with the templates and plugging in the individual and for their thing as well. In that sense, it's like if somebody's got, like, say, a lower limb injury, and then another person's got an upper limb injury, or you're templating for somebody. Okay, here's a lower limb injury. I've got a template for that. Here's an upper limb injury. I've got a template for that. Here's somebody who's got a back injury. I've got a template for that, for example, so that you can make sure that, there's no actual load for someone like that at the beginning, but there is further down the program when they've progressed. Is that kind of essentially one of the things you're talking about there?
Yeah, essentially. So when it comes to, and this can come with anything, right? How many people ask you questions? How many clients have bad sleep? How many clients have issues with hunger? You could write a quick response every time. It takes you forever. Or you want one really good answer where you can do videos, you can do whatever it wants to make it a really phenomenal answer and have it ready to go when anyone has that issue. So they get a much higher quality of response from you in much less time.
Yeah.
So they have a quick turnaround of advice. And then, like I say, when it comes to programming, it's a similar thing. So I mentioned earlier on, I essentially now have what's called the reset, rebuild, replenish phase. So my reset phase is almost my take on what muscle nerds would call release mode, right? So and I have goals I want to achieve with the client. So the aim of a reset phase is to get somebody in a healthy place to take on more nutrition, right? So I want to get someone blood pressure lower, resting heart rate down. I don't really measure HRV, but in that case, I want a better HRV. So I don't know enough about HRV, but if you do, you can optimize that, right? So to do that, you're getting someone a good aerobic base. Okay, I can put all my effort into having a good template to get someone a good aerobic base. That could be part of that program. With the weight training, most people are going to come in, very little skill, very, 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 very unstable in most cases. We're going to be limited in terms of like range of motion or strength at the extremities. So a lot of my is going to be a linear periodization, starting quite high repetition ranges, getting practicing a lot of the main lifts. Often that starts off with things that are much more stable, machine work, split squats, things like this. And then things that put them in positions that help later down the line, like an incline bicep curl, to take for argument, will not only train your biceps through the length and range, which is great, but also put you into a level of shoulder extension, which is going to have carryover later down the line of being able to get under a bar with a squat, or be able to control the bottom of a bench press, or whatever else. So I'm over that. My graduation mark for that is being in a position where I feel that you can hold tension in the muscle quite effectively. You can train with the prerequisite intensity without losing stability. Like the big rock stability, that's sort of my main thing. So be a linear periodization from high reps down to relatively low reps over the course of whatever that period is. Nutrition-wise, if someone's a beginner, you're probably starting relatively low carb, take away common inflammatories, get them in a position where they're, they reduce inflammation, they can utilize food better, insulin sensitivity improves, we take away stuff that's causing the digestive to be all over the place, and we just give them structure. Also, that's probably going to be a fairly big deficit from the off, which is not a bad thing, because a big deficit from the off, again, helps with reducing inflammation quickly, but also means they can probably drop a fair bit of weight in the first 2 to 3 weeks, which helps the client buy in. Then we start to find where maintenance is, and we start to build food up over that process as they get more in tune with the gym. And then when you're looking at then what habits do they need to have, and that's where you can start planning templates. So, okay, in that time, I want to get looking at all those things I want to achieve with training and nutrition. What's the lifestyle skills that someone needs to have? Can I prepare resources for key things in their lifestyle? As I mentioned before, overcoming the all or nothing mentality. It could be, you find that people's motivation will start to drop off around 4 to 6 weeks. People get less precise. And everyone, I've done it when I've done mini diets and I start dipping in a blue cheese dip and I don't stop losing weight, but after 6 weeks I've now heaped that blue cheese dip. So can you prepare for that and have a little reminder of being more accurate with tracking and why that's more important? Could you start planning these things? Good sleep environment, good digestive health, don't eat when you're stressed, chew your food, all these things, right, that we tell to our clients. Can we prepare great resources? And then when I go into the rebuild phase, because they have that base now I can get more specific with their programming. So now we're like, say, if someone wants to get, if you're looking at hypertrophy as the goal, rebuild bigger, look at improving volume over a 5-week period. now looking at focusing on the big strength leaks that we see. As you mentioned earlier, we put a load on the bar. They're stable in most of the common things now. What goes wrong when we get heavy? Now can we gear the programs to work around that, to build up that whatever their squat variant is or whatever their press variant is. And then not only does that help gear the templates I build and allow me to apply something specific to the goal that client has at that phase, but it also helps gear my education. Because if I'm starting to write templates for Rebuild Stronger, but who could I pay for a consult with who is an expert at getting someone stronger? Okay, maybe this is when I jump on a call with Jordan Shallow, or if I'm trying to do more, if I'm trying to do a Rebuild Fitter sort of program here, could I get on a call with Ross Edgley, if that's even possible, and talk about some of the factors he helps to get people much fitter, so it gears my education, but it also gears how I build resources for clients. Is that I went on a big tangent there? I think that answers your question.
That's quality, but that's quality. I like how you think about this kind of stuff. Is definitely resonate with that because I'm lockdown triggered it. It was something that was in the back of my mind for a while, but I've built out a online program, and just doing the same sort of thing, right? It's like a pre-air. I was just saying to you how I'm good at helping people with foundations. Getting you really, really strong foundations, and then. So part of being on pre-script level 1 for me with Shallows is to build up that next level, which is how do I program somebody for the next level of their goals? Is like you've got that fundamental level, you're happy, you've achieved that first goal that you wanted. How do I get you to the next level? So part of that programming has been dealing with all those foundations, like moving better, so the correct exercise programming, so you understand how to move properly, nutrition management, so that you're making good decisions. You're basically building the ability to make good decisions around nutrition rather than just thinking, this food is good and this food is bad. Like that's the awful mentality to bring into it. Is like, no, you need to learn how to make good choices around your food. And then stress management and stress resilience and buoyancy is what I call it as well. So you're building resilience to stress by putting yourself under stress, but then you also got techniques where you building that buoyancy, which is, helping you calm down, helping you relax a little bit. And then so stress, sleep, nutrition, and movement basically is what you're covering, and understanding how to do that over a 12-week period. And it's tailored for the individual as well, because based on like I mentioned, if you've got shoulder injury, if you've got back injury, if you've got knee injury, or if you're a complete beginner, or if you're somebody who's been training for a couple of years. So that's where it is. So I'm building out those resources as well. So the kind of stuff that you were just mentioning there was like, cool. Like it's good to, in a way, like you hear it from somebody else who's like educating other trainers and has been in the industry long enough as well and getting sick results with people. I'm like, oh yeah, it's good to hear that. It's good to hear that we're on that same wavelength with it.
And it makes your job easier later down the line, because if you can take away those, if you can sort of get those big rocks sort of like sorted. You're thinking if you can get someone stable in phase 1, when you move them into a squat, you're not having to look at all the stuff that tends to go wrong. You've sorted a lot of issues before they become issues. And going back full circling to the path of education, of application first, and then rebuilding knowledge, you can get people to ground like the most important things in their life. They're now in good habits. So you're not having to babysit them anymore. You're there. They know how to train, so they go on holiday. They can still train hard if they want to train, but they don't necessarily need to, because they've got a good habit to come back to. It's not an all or nothing mentality. So then, in the same way you would with a trainer education, you turn the application, you've got that foundation, and then you layer on stuff. Same thing now. So now, if you look at the client journey, you can start looking at building resources for specific phases. So if you look at someone with like hypertrophy goal, moving from a physique mindset to a performance mindset is a phenomenal stepping stone and milestone for that person. How many people do you see finish their result and then they're still fixated on the scale, still fixated on their abs? Now you've got to let go of your abs to build the muscle, otherwise you ain't going to build too much. So it's learning then to kind of, okay, now how do we set goals? How do we think about focusing your attention now on a performance mindset when the last 15, 20 weeks as you've been focused on a little bit of scale weight, how you look, and in a goal that week on week you're seeing progress. Now you're looking at things that are going to be month on month, or even eventually quarter on quarter in terms of real progress. How can we switch that mindset for long-term success? And now you can start planning and doing real research on how to help your clients with those kind of things as well, right? And like this is where one of the things I always got to go on, going back to the start of this, like what resonated with me with watching Umar coach on the gym floor is like Umar, quite similar to me. I think a lot of people say we're not the best admin people in the world, right? We used to get criticized for this a lot, right? Yeah. Okay, so
no comment.
A lot of learning systems. But that's not a bad thing, because a lot of people aren't good in the admin thing. It's because they're creative. They're more visual people. They're more spokespeople. Things like this, right? So a lot of the systems I create allows me to go fully in on the creative freedom in terms of my programming, my advice I give to people, and then take away a little bit of the need for the admin side of things. The more and more I get, more things I provide, because it becomes easier to do that part of my job. As I said earlier about focusing on your strengths and sort of controlling your weaknesses. And one of the things I found about Umar is that, like, you tend to find a lot of trainers get great results because they hammer their clients. They're always on the case. They measure them every day. They're really on top of things. Their admin's great. They're doing phenomenal check-ins. And then you had like Umar UP was getting as good results with probably more people, and certainly putting tissue on people better than most people have ever seen. And he certainly wasn't the guy who was giving up his Sunday, sending 400 emails out. Why was Umar, and I'd like to think I'm in the same boat here, why is it that he could get great results without having to be so on top of everybody all the time? It's because he teaches people to fall in love with training. And because he teaches people to fall in love, because he's so on top of the gym floor. And this is why I think, we can get this is another tangent, and we can go on to in a second. If you're wanting to be an online trainer without at least a year on the gym floor, you're going to be a rubbish online trainer, right? Because it's that ability to be phenomenally present in every rep of every set with a client that gets buy-in, that makes them bought into the process, and eventually makes them love training. So they're asking you questions about, they want to be better at it. And I knew I had a client of mine, a New Zealand girl, who used to deadlift 147 kilos off the floor. You know Umar, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely strong as anything, right? Really, really strong girl. Now, her programming on paper wasn't optimal for her goal, right? Because it wasn't high rep stuff. It's like she wants to build some muscle. She wants to drop a little bit of body fat. Like, strength training isn't going to be the most ideal way of doing it. But for her, if she hit a PB deadlift, she would go and eat better, because she left the gym feeling stimulated. She felt like it was something that she enjoyed. She was so bought into training and loved training that even now that I'm in a different country, she doesn't train anymore. She still trains, right? And it's that you don't necessarily need to babysit people anymore, because you get them so excited about the process that they're coming to you. They want to be better. They're asking you questions, and that's what Umar did very well. And I think it's something that's often lost in terms of like trainers is not bending the craft, getting quite comfortable where they're at, so they don't be able to talk with such authority. I don't know if that's the right word, but certainly to the point where they get their clients really excited about the gym, and that makes your life easier as a coach, and it makes their life much more enjoyable as a client.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for that, Si. I think sometimes with the online trainer space, it's a funny one, because I feel like it's plug and play with exercises, and that sometimes is looking at an exercise in one dimension when this exercise has to fit this human in their life. It's like, how does a deadlift serve? Was Rebecca her name, right? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, Rebecca. It's like, how does that deadlift as a tool serve this person? And obviously, you've got to be autonomous, and you've got to be free thinking and critical thinking with your knowledge to look at. Okay, it's a hip extension movement, cool, but what does it do for this person? How does it empower somebody to move in that way and put on 3 plates aside on a deadlift and rip it off the floor? It's like, what does it do for them in the encompassing everything they have to deal with in their life, right? It's like, kind of, are we now focusing on just a hip extension as, I've ticked that box in my program, so now I can move on to knee flexion, I can move on to shoulder extension? No, it's like, what does that actually serve this person in their life? Can we start programming that way a little bit as well? Because we're dealing with human beings. We're not dealing with on paper, I've checked all the books, I've checked all the boxes, and every week my volume went up, but really I've got a miserable human being who just shows up and drags their heels around the gym floor. So no, let's love this shit.
In a way, it's got to start there, though. In a way, it's got to start there, because I think people, again, going back to laying on applications first, more than adding layer of knowledge, is understand that most people are lost with the programming and they don't know where to start. So, like, if you can get someone to start, right, okay, you've got a program, you can get some form of vertical push and pull based on their overhead range of motion, right? Whether you lean back or have an incline on a bench, some form of horizontal push and pull, some form of hip extension, some form of knee flexion, because most people don't think about hamstrings enough when it comes to stabilizing the knee, and then you're looking at some form of bilateral squat pattern, some form of unilateral squat pattern. And I think it's got to start there so people understand the big rocks they're programming. And then the target areas then can be based around what they want in their physique, what's going to help them down the line. But going on to what you were saying there, I think once you understand the basics of how to put a program together and understand that, layering on a little bit of knowledge and then getting to know the individual becomes massively important. I got asked the question on Instagram that I did an IGTV with a little while ago, is what can you tell me the difference between programming for strength and programming for body composition? And where Gen Pop fit within that. And I think, when you're looking at training the general population, I don't think it's either. Because I think training like a bodybuilder won't mind getting temporarily weaker as long as they look better in 12 weeks. A strength athlete, yes, they might have to get a little bit bigger to be stronger, but as long as more weight goes on the bar, they don't really care. The Gen Pop, if you want to call it, client, the average person wanting to improve the way they look naked, not because they want to step on stage and look thick skin lean, but because they want to feel more confident in their clothes. They want to be able to wear a bikini or go shirtless on the beach. They want to be able to be more confident talking to members of the opposite sex, be more authority in their job. We'll let Umar die, then he can come back. Sweet.
Sorry, just dying a little bit.
Just don't give me coronavirus to the screen, man. So,
that's another transmission.
Yeah. Where was it that for Umar got coronavirus?
Strength training, hypertrophy for Gen Pop.
So, but then you got to look at sort of like where the general client, you got to understand they've got emotions in this. And then you've got to look at, like, okay, what's on paper isn't necessarily option for them. Because, okay, yeah, I go mad down more towards the bodybuilding route. It might be on paper the most efficient way to get them to the goal in the quickest way possible. But understand that this client, if they don't hit a PB 1 week, that might be the thing that spirals them out mentally, thinking the process isn't working, and then they fall into a cheesecake. And I don't want to make it sound that people are weak-willed, but people have emotional connection to food. This is not me judging at all, because I've had emotional connection to food. I sometimes get stressed when I eat, right? Like we all battle those at times of our lives. So understanding that, their why may not be as strict and as strong as somebody got 20 old weeks out from a stage show or powerlifting meet, and understanding that then you've got to be a little bit more fluid in your approach to keep them engaged, whether that's changing the program a little bit more regularly to keep them mentally stimulated, whether it's finding exercises that they enjoy. But it's having a little bit of the emotional connection with them, but having the prerequisite knowledge to not hurt them for the sake of it. If a client says, "Oh, well, I really want a deadlift," and after they move back in hip, into any hip flexion more than half an inch, they just round and just look like a camel. Okay, we're not going to deadlift with you. But what we can do is we can regress that exercise into incline hyper, barbell hip extension, upper back work, dead bugs, bracing work, to the point where the aim in 10, 12, 20 weeks time, we're going to get you to a position where we can find some form of deadlift that works for you. And then we're going to hammer that. And I think, that not only means that you can be fluid within your approach, but it also means when it comes to long-term client results, you've had one of the best retention out of people in the company at UP for years. And people always just ask me, why is it that I was really good at retention? And I didn't even really know that I was. I just knew I had clients for years. I assumed everyone else did. I just didn't think myself was any different. And people used to present on the ideal ways of retention. It's like, know how many sessions are left in your package, and make sure you're there prepared for the renewal. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at our front of house manager at the time, Martha, and you'll know Martha very well. And I'm sitting there, and Martha's looking back at me. She knows my retention's so good, and she also knows how useless an admin I am. And we're just looking back and forth. I went, the side isn't well, and he ain't doing any of that. And would my retention be even better if I did that? Undoubtedly, yes. And my admin is considerably better now because I value the importance of it. So thank you, Martha. The Polish wisdom has taught me lots. But but understand that wasn't the reason why I managed. I got retention in spite of that. And for me, I think it was one, getting people really engaged in training. And I always spoke in, this is where I want you to be in 6 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years. It's not just 12 weeks out the door. It's like I used to plan phase people, again, going back to Rebecca and her deadlift. There was a period of time where she got freaked out at the 120. So she was freaked out by she wouldn't pick it up, and her mental state was affecting her picking it up. She was getting too scared. So then we went into, you can call it an accumulation phase if you like, but we went into escalating density training. So if you don't know EDT is where you'll go a bit sub-max load, but let's start at 20 minutes on the clock, and I'll do 6 deadlifts, 6 incline dumbbell presses, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. The aim is to do as many rounds as possible within a 20-minute period. So obviously you're not going to do this with your 3-rep max. This is going to be something that you do 6 reps with your 15-rep max. The idea is you accumulate a lot of volume over the course of the hour, a lot of density. Now, this on paper, well, maybe with the amount of density, amount of reps you're doing, it was more volume, but the intensity dropped, and in turn, volume probably dropped over all the sessions. So if someone looked at my program on paper, would go, well, you just not volume offer. This is a bad program. I'm like, yes, it's not volume offer now. It's take half a step back to take 5 forward. Because in 4 or 5 weeks' time, when we now go back to sticking her max weight in the bar for 3 to 4 reps, she's now in this mindset, deadlift bar, walk up, pick it up. She couldn't think about it for 4 weeks because she was against the clock. She just walked up, picked it up, walked up, picked it up, walked up, picked it up. Now we put more weight on the bar. She just walks up, picks it up. And all of a sudden, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, you were scared to pick it up. Now you didn't even think about it. Same thing can be applied with slow eccentrics, something that Umar knows very well. That's the thing I got from his training. I started doing my clients and myself, which made a massive difference. I remember Tom Hibbert gave Umar this 300 second eccentric deadlift, which is horrible. I remember that I was trying to launch a UP podcast, right? And I did an episode with Umar. And I going off at times again, but this is entertaining enough. And the idea was we're going to delve into the story of Umar being this massively overweight guy. And he used to tell me issues with sleep apnea and things like this. Oh, wow, that's a story loads of people resonate with. This guy is now about to do a photo shoot, shredded, used to be morbidly obese, and I'm there going, man, this is gonna be gold, right? Now, two reasons why Umar made this difficult for me. One, when I was trying to edit, I got training footage of it. I was trying to edit this training footage together, right? To make this little montage of training and intro for Umar. Every eccentric was 10 seconds long. So I couldn't cut any of the footage together. Then we get into the episode. I can send you this if you want to listen to it, right? I got into the episode, and then it was there's an audience for people that like freak shows, right? There are people that go to the circus to see these world's strongest men, guys with a mustache, right? Umar might have been one of these guys because, I was expecting this story. I just got fed up of being overweight. I want sleep apnea was struggling for me. Having issues. All these things you expect if you listen to a client. No. My dad was really strong. I want to be the strongest guy in the gym. So I ate ice cream until I was really fat and strong. And I loved it. And it was really good. I'm like, stop advertising obesity, Umar. Freak out feature. We're going back to where I was saying before, but we're going into these 10-second eccentrics. And I had another client called May, who was another girl that could lift 140 kilos off the floor. No problems name dropping her because she loves the publicity. Because she's a unit of a mental force. Phenomenal. I've never been out-angled by a woman so much in my whole life. She's bigger arms than me, unit. But she got to the point where her biggest problem was when she was picking up, she was starting to lose her upper back. Now it's got to the point where it was more than just the power off the floor. So we did a phase, we did a lot of upper back work, we did a lot of pause leg pressing work. But what we did in that for our A series, for our main lift, was a 10-second slow eccentric deadlift. And we're just doing 4 to 6 reps, sub-max weight again. Yes, volume goes down, because weight dramatically decreased. But now she controls every inch of her deadlift, And now with our accessory work, plugging those strength links off the floor, now when she got back into adding another 10 kilos on the bar, she controlled it like it was half the weight. And we raced up the volume on the next one. So I think understanding when it comes to programming, understanding sometimes it's okay to take half a step back, to take two forward, and working with where your client's at in terms of their not only their physical performance, but also their headspace and psychological performance, knowing that their performance of the day is going to influence how likely they are to stick to the diet, how engaged they're going to be in your training sessions, and everything else.
Too right on.
So with like Gen Pop people, and there's a lot of them coming in with hang-ups to training, or to, like, let's just use the most common reason people want to start training and get into the gym is because they want to lose weight, right? So if they're trying to do that, but they're coming in with a lot of hang-ups with food, coming in with a lot of hang-ups with training, they've tried several times before, haven't succeeded, so they just kind of setting themselves up for failure even this time around. What kind of like ideas or tools do you use to get people to fall in love with that process, fall in love with training, so that they keep doing it without you? That question's for both of you. Okay,
I think taking this first, I think there's three things here I look at. I think looking at understanding someone's real true motivation, the why, is huge. It's a buzzword, right? But Precision Nutrition, John Berardi talks about the 5 whys, asking why 5 times to delve a little bit deeper into someone's psyche, knowing why. How I look at it, I think that's only part of that puzzle. And how I look at consults, my system using for consults is I will look at a past, future, present model of understanding someone's motivation. So with the past, my aim is finding that why. Find out why you're unhappy with your current physique. What is it that you're miserable about? What is it that puts you in front of me? Why do you need my help? Because if I can truly under that, I can then understand your motivation a little bit more. I can understand what your big problems are with things. I can meet you where you're at. But also it makes you very aware of your problems. Because it will start with, I want to lose some weight. Okay, why is losing some weight important to you? Well, I want to feel a bit healthier for you. Okay, and why is it that you don't feel healthy at the moment? Well, I'm out of breath going down the stairs, and I'm getting a lot of digestive issues. Okay, and how does that make you feel in your day-to-day life? How's that like? And you ask those questions, you take that answer, you delve a little bit deeper. So you get that idea of sort of where someone is, why someone wants to change. And they're not only are you clear on it, but they're more clear on it. And then you'll go into the future, and the future's not just picking a goal. It's not just picking a realistic goal for them. It's not just smart. It's, okay, right, I want to paint this end goal picture for you. I want to get you excited from the off of what this end goal is. So not only how do you want to look, but how do you want to feel? What habits do you want to have? And that's a key question as well. It's like a lot of people will come to, I want to be the kind of person that gets up in the morning and go for a run. I'm sure you've both heard that. I want to be that person that's a food prep every day. They come in with this idea of, I want to do these habits. And then they don't do them. So then you can refer back to that concept. Go, do you remember you said you want to be that person who's active and doing hikes on the weekend? You've been here for 6 weeks, you haven't done a hike. You can't wait to in shape to start doing those habits. Those habits will get you in shape. But so not only have you got something to give them that accountability, but you now have, they understand truly why they're miserable, and understand that real painful but necessary part of the equation. They're now really excited about everything about that end goal. It's not just, I want to look like that person on Instagram. I want to feel this way, act this way, look this way, behave this way. And then the question, the present is where the questions I'll ask them is, why do you not look like that already? And it's a little bit on the nose question. Some people go, what are your biggest barriers? What are your biggest hang-ups? I think that you're being a bit too nice in the question. You want to hit a nerve. So you've told me where you're miserable and why you want to look that way. Why don't you look like that already? Because they're going to tell you the big things that's the problem in their life. And if you can sort them, you've probably sorted everything else out. That's the main thing. They're going to tell you their problems. So I think understanding that and getting clear on that gets them excited first. And then I think laying out expectations is big. I think people tend to lose love for training when they don't think it's working. And so if you can explain long-term where we are now, where the end goal is, explain what that process is, explain what's going to be entailed to get there from their perspective, and like understanding how quick it's going to take. Let them understand that, okay, there's going to be times this gets tough. This is the rate of loss we're expecting per week. It will not happen every week. So the more you can understand when things come up, they understand that motivation will drop off. If they know that early on, if they know that before motivation drops off, it's not that, I've lost motivation. I'm going to have a cheesecake. It's, okay, I knew this was coming. I'm expecting this. Here's how we get through it. So they feel that they're in your corner. And how I often do that in a consult is I will ask them what their expectations are of me, which is people feel a bit cheeky saying what they expect of somebody, right? So if they feel that they've done this, then they don't mind as much me then coming in afterwards and telling what my expectations are of you. I expect communication. I expect, all the things you want from your service and your clients that are going to get the best results. So I think there's that in terms of getting people falling in love with the process. And then I think it's just explaining when you actually, now they have the expectations, they know why they're doing something, they know what they're about to do. All the way through, you're referring this back to the goal, where this is taking them, and why they're doing everything they're doing. So they can, because people love, when they have personal trainers, people love telling their friends knowledge. How often is a group of women at a dinner table talking about things? They all talk about, I'd love to lose a bit of weight. Well, my personal trainer told me about this, and this. And all of a sudden, if it becomes part of your social circle that you're excited to talk about personal training because your personal trainer is giving you a bit of confidence, because you've given a bit of wisdom that we all like knowing something. We all like knowing something our mates don't know and feeling the smart guy in the room. If you can provide that with your clients, they're going to enjoy it. And if you can provide knowledge in their training sessions that why they're doing something, they're going to be more engaged in doing it. Anything you'd add, Umar?
Very comprehensive side. I mean, for me, doubling down on the vision is always the way. I mean, like keeping that clear in your day, and almost just kind of having that as like I have a few notebooks that I keep just because it has a passage in there which is very clear as to why I started what I'm doing, why I need to carry on doing it every single day, and where it's going to get me. Like it's as simple as that. I mean, I feel like there's an absolute infinity of motivation and motivational speakers and quotes and videos and examples and books and all this stuff that you can get into. But if you can deep dive within yourself and you can find a sentence, and that sentence pretty much sums up who you are, why you are here, and where you want to go. So the things you talked about, the past, the present, the future, and it's done in quite a succinct way. And it may not be the first iteration you write of it, but you'll get there eventually. That keeps you honest. It keeps you driven. It keeps you nailed to the cross. I mean, like you have to do this because of this, and if you don't, you kind of die a little bit inside. When you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, this is not happening. Right? Obviously, finding out the way along the way, finding out the process along the way is where a trainer would come in, where we would come in. But that is, I feel like a very individual process that every client should go through. And personally, I had to go through it. I had to go through it to make any kind of change in my life. And it is where I'll definitely start with clients. Obviously, it takes a bit of time sometimes to form that. But I think if we can be there, showing the client that this is the way, because if you set the trajectory and you almost go to that end place, you can then work your way backwards. It's something I got from Jordan Shallow, but it's almost like kind of he's helped me put into words what I felt I was doing, what I was loosely doing before, which is kind of you go there, you make the pretty picture and you make the garden and you look at it, oh wow, that'll be amazing. It's like, well, how do we get there? We just work our way backwards, and then we think about the things we have to instill. And you touched on all these points, so yeah, I would definitely agree with everything you said there for sure. Can
I ask, what is that? So you've got your notebook in terms of your mission, what you want to do. What is that?
Yeah. It's a deep. It's do you know, it's like it comes down to changing the world, man. It comes down to kind of making sure that the world's a better place now than when you left it. Changing the world in a way that it's better having had you in it, and you've got to just make an impact to leave the world a better place. And that's like kind of you take inspiration from people that have come before you in ways like what Muhammad Ali, how he changed the world. You look at kind of different people that have been fighters or been politicians or been whatever. They've always kind of died for that cause. They've always kind of given their life up for that cause. And I feel like I need to do that as well. I need to do that as well. I need to do that because I know where I come from. I know the parents that have raised me, and I know that needs to be done. It needs to be done in a way that moves people forward, moves people out of pain. It moves people out of suffering. It gives them a heading. It makes them feel they can be effective also. And that's my why, man. That's my why. And I feel like through you guys, through everybody else I kind of come into contact with, I'm able to get that done. You know what I mean? Like, kind of sometimes it's not always as efficient. Sometimes it's you got to beat around the bush a little bit, and you've got to go through those periods like you talked about with May and with your other client that take you a few steps backwards. But then you always remember why you started in the first place, and it ends up catapulting you forward. So long as you see the intent that you were trying to derive from that backward step, you go back and you plug that into the jigsaw puzzle, and you start seeing like, okay, this picture's coming together now.
I mean, like, to go into it, that's awesome. Because it got me thinking when you mentioned that in our notebook about what my why was, and it goes a little bit into that that initial intro of me about talking about WWE and pro wrestling. Like, we have to get on to wrestling at some point.
I'm glad you made this term, bro.
Yeah.
This is where I was going to go with it.
The
so,
shift.
Like, I think for me, obviously, I was I've always been a talkative kid, but I've always been a very, very insecure. I was always a very insecure child. You know, never really had the confidence to sort of speak up or feel I, was of value to anyone. Didn't feel like, and I think I had bouts of being bullied at various times in my life, and I tended to struggle with confidence a lot through my childhood years. And then so that pay-per-view I saw was Royal Rumble 2000, Triple H, Cactus Jack, Street Fight. Right? Sick. If you haven't seen it, go watch.
What a throwback!
One of the best matches, right? And I was just hooked. And I think for me, looking at the reason why pro wrestling resonated with me and still does to this day, is that at the time I latched onto the physiques, but now I realised it was so much bigger than that. So I saw Triple H, and Triple H just is unreal physique, right? But it wasn't just the physique that inspired me about Triple H. It was the confidence and how he could captivate an audience of tens of thousands of people, right? In the same way The Rock can and Stone Cold Steve Austin can, name your wrestler here, right? They captivate huge audiences. And not only at the time, I thought, well, if I look like that, then I will have that confidence too. That I can go and be better at speaking with people, be more confident, have more friends, have more girlfriends at the time, And I associated the physique. And at the time, I didn't know about work and the back end of the business and knew it was an act. But even so, I mean, going out in Madison Square Garden in front of tens of thousands of people and speaking in a pair of little pants takes an amazing amount of confidence. So that sort of message has sort of taken me through almost my entire career, where, yes, I help people look better, but I don't really care about abs. And this is probably the reason why I'm a much better coach than I am an athlete. I'm never going to be the bodybuilding guy. I'm a very different market to a Jordan Shallow or a Muscle Mentors or something like that, where, I'm not that guy necessarily that, I do live, sleep and breathe training, but I'm not that guy I want to be lean all year round, and I have gotten very lean, as you both know. But it's for me, it's the confidence that comes from that comes from fitness that you can't get through anything else, because you can spend all your time chatting to this girl and she still might not fancy you. You can work really hard for promotion and someone's played the game better and gets it instead of. There's always an element of luck in everything. And yes, we've got bone restrictions, but genetics. When it comes to building a physique, anyone can build a pretty decent physique. It's all down what you get in. What you put in is what you get out of it. And that transforms people in other aspects of life. You see people improving their work and their relationships and their social environment. And I know for me, that helped me gain that confidence. So my long-term goal is, if I can help improve somebody's confidence, I don't really care how I do it. My first job I ever wanted to do was to be a therapist. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. Wow. And I failed biology, believe it or not. And then my university degree, which, by the way, I got a third because I spent more time partying and drinking than studying. If I went back and did university now, with what I know, without trying to be an arrogant statement, I'd ace it. But at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to know I wanted to help people, as corny as it sounds. But it's about the confidence that I can bring. Now, as I said before, that started off with getting people in shape. And you can see, I love that when I get people to a photo shoot or whatever their end goal is, the abs are inconsequential. It's seeing how that person carries themselves that makes a difference. That's what fills me with light. Now, if I can help 10 clients with that, now I help 10 trainers who have 10 clients. Now I help 100 people, right? Just from clients alone. 110 if you include the trainers, right? Now, if I come back, if I then go take a step back further and start running education for team leads within gyms, I now help 10 gyms with 10 trainers with 100 clients. I then eventually do more public speaking. I start my own podcast. I do something like this. Everyone that listens to it, I've now helped thousands of people. Now I can help 1 million people improve their confidence. I've done something that's bigger than me. But if it's abs are the consequence for this, right? And I'll give you an example. Recently, I had a client called Winston, really the friendliest guy I've ever met, Filipino guy. He got mega peeled. And he came in because he was just recovering in remission from pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
Very shy, very insecure guy. But because he went all in, because his doctor told him he needed to go all in, right? Because his lifestyle was really poor. And over the course of that process, I started learning things about Winston. You look at his Instagram, and it was basically, I want to use a shrine to his wife. His wife's not dead. But if you look on his Instagram, it's all pictures of her. There isn't one of him. And he told me, he's like, why is there no picture of you on Instagram? He was getting lean at this point. He was looking good. I was like, why not? Because I don't like photos. I don't like photos of myself. Don't take them. And then over time, I started to notice he would take photos of himself, like selfies, in the changing room at UP, and they're sending to me. And I'm like, okay, he's gaining a bit of confidence here. This is good. And it kind of got into, we eventually convinced him to do a photo shoot. As a culmination of it, you didn't like taking selfies, you're now taking selfies, now let's get a professional photographer. Like, what would be that amazing journey to give this insecure man with cancer to being this healthy man, with confidence take photos? And then one of the few things where coronavirus worked in my favor, a week before the photo shoot, gyms shut. So we're like, what are we going to do? So I came up with the idea, I approached this to Winston, went, how would you think about doing a photo shoot on Victoria Harbour? So if people don't know Hong Kong, Victoria Harbour, the front of Hong Kong, right by the sea, with all the buildings by it. Amazing. People are doing yoga there, people are running there, there's tons of people. So we did the photo shoot outside, full on confidence, tons of great pictures. And he looked great. He looked absolutely phenomenal. But it wasn't about that. For me, it was a person that would never take a photo of himself. Now getting a professional photographer to take photos of him in the busiest part of one of the most densely populated cities in the world. That is something I'll remember for the rest of my life. And that is what this is all about. And I remember, I was running mentorships. Another great example. I went off on a tangent, which, as you guys have already realised, I do a lot. And it was about getting a hobby, which is something that Luke Lehman always teaches, right? People don't have many hobbies. And I went on this rant about okay, I understand that you guys wanted to be at UP City, want to be the best trainers, and you've got all this pressure on yourself to get these results, and it's a good thing, you've got this accountability to get better, but understand, the people who end up being the best in any industry are the people that are never satisfied, right? And they're always pushing for more. However, you need experience to be able to actually get better. So to get that experience, you need longevity. Going all in for a year and then burning out helps no one. So getting a hobby, taking time for yourself is really, really important. I went on this tangent, and a few people, you never know how well you affect people in these mentorships. Sometimes people take the face value, they smile, thank you, round of applause. But it's especially in England with English trainers, there's this politeness that comes with being British. So you don't really know how much that's genuine and how much that's what you do, right? And then I got an email from this trainer by a guy named Alex Searle. And he just said how much of an impact that made on his life, and that he was burning himself out, and just having that really, really resonated with him. And I sent a few emails back and forth, and that was the time where I knew this kid was going to be really, really good. But it's also the time where you see the light bulb go off. And no, I want to make you a really, really good trainer, but not at the expense of you and your personality and what makes you interesting. And that's where it's always resonated with me, and that's the reason why, I get my fair share of results now from being in this game long enough and having a good number of clients, being better at my craft and getting more experience. But if a result has to take 5-6 weeks longer to get someone in the right headspace, I'm not sacrificing somebody, because I understand that most of the clients I deal with not just about being thick, skin, lean, and it's certainly not about losing your hair because your thyroid's gone out of whack. It's about creating the person. It's creating the person inside that represents that outside, and it's creating the trainer inside that represents a person that not only gets results but their clients love them.
Yeah,
big.
That's what I want to do.
Big. That was brilliant, Si. That was brilliant. That's the soundbite right there.
Impact.
That's the soundbite. Yeah, man. Yeah. Right. I'm gonna segue it back to pro wrestling because we've got to get to my name because it's been 2 hours now, guys. We got to talk about this name. Right. Usually it's 2 minutes. I'm feeling a bit neglected over here. Right.
Yeah.
So, if you had to be a pro wrestler and you could pick from the current pro wrestlers that we have, or you can choose your own music, what would your entrance music be? Let's hear it.
That's such a good question.
To give you guys some time to think, I will take the floor and I will say that my name is straight up whose entrance music I would choose. Yeah, when Booker T's music hits, and he just, can you dig it, sucker? That's the one. That is the one.
Oh man, yes, you brought back some memories with that one.
Gets me going every time. Gets me going, right? So that gives me the feels. It was between him and actually Mr. Perfect. So, do you remember Mr. Perfect?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Strong entry. Anyone who's not heard Mr. Perfect, that actually is on my cardio playlist, right? Because it just makes me feel like I need to rise to the treadmill, right? But
bro, you gotta send me that. I don't know that tune.
Yeah, I don't remember it,
bro.
Epic. It's like some. It could literally be in a scene of Lord of the Rings. It's that like deep and moving. But yeah. Si, where you go with this, man?
So if we're looking at past like WWE entrance themes now, so
anyone you like.
Yeah, so when obviously my favorite wrestler growing up, other than Triple H. So you know when you kind of like you get your first place at WWE PlayStation game, and you find the character model that you want to look like, and you pick the movesets of somebody that you like. And this is before you can really create this. It's more like you pick a music for a wrestler, you pick a moveset from a wrestler, you pick somebody who sort of looks like you, and then you just alter it, right? Now, I had to have a rethink in terms of everything that I would choose because growing up, my favorite wrestler was Chris Benoit. Now,
oh shit.
Yeah. Okay, less said about that, the better, right? So, but if I had to choose a music of a pro wrestler that stuck out for me, I think Cult of Personality, the theme tune for CM Punk, would resonate with me. Now, I think there's a lot of things that I'm certainly not as charismatic and as witty as a force of nature as CM Punk, but I like the fact that he gets in trouble for speaking his mind too much, just like I get in trouble for speaking my mind too much. He would consider himself the voice of the voiceless, which is, essentially what I'm saying about trying to give people confidence and speak up. The way I've always like considered myself a leader. If someone considers me a leader, I've not got a title. I'm in a leadership team. I'm in a leadership role, but I don't consider a role making me a leader. If people think I'm a leader, it's people I've worked with. It's people like Umar. If Umar thinks I'm a leader, then I'm a leader to him. If someone else thinks I'm a leader to them. But I've always run it in the sense of like my aim is to be the voice of the people that maybe are a little bit quieter, that need that confidence, that aren't willing to speak up. I'm going to fight the causes, even if it gets me in trouble, of people that wouldn't fight those battles. So the voice of the voiceless thing from CM Punk and the theme tune Cult of Personality, which is a banging tune, definitely I think would be the closest thing to what I choose.
Yeah, you have to send that tune to us as well.
And the pipe bomb, if anything you want to look, is if you listen to the CM Punk 2011 pipe bomb on YouTube, and he does this tirade. Like, he basically was given a microphone by Vince McMahon and said, "You can shoot on the business." So they gave him permission to float his mind, and it went viral. It went huge. Like, it brought loads of fans back into the WWE because this guy just spoke his mind against the company, and it was awesome. That was, and then he came back. He did that thing, and then the whole storyline was he was going to go to Money in the Bank, beat John Cena for the WWE title, and then his contract expired on the night of Money in the Bank, he's going to leave the title. And this is only part storyline because his contract was expiring on that night of Money in the Bank. So this is actually somewhat true, even into storylines. I mean, until the day of the show, they still didn't know whether he was resigning. So the booking of the match was based off, I'm assuming if he didn't resign, then John Cena probably would have won. It would have been over. But if he did resign, he allowed CM Punk to win, ride this momentum. He ran off with the WWE title, appeared at loads of independent shows with the title, making it seem like he actually had walked off. And about a month later, he came back with this new theme tune, which was Cult of Personality. It was awesome.
That was pretty sick. I don't know about you guys, but my my audio was all over the place whilst I was saying that. You guys were okay?
Oh yeah, I was fine. Yeah, we were fine.
Okay, good. That's fine.
Can you hear us? You back on? You back on? You hearing us again?
Kind of crackling on and off, but I mean, I heard the gist of it, mentioning Chris Benoit, sick guy, but unfortunate endings.
Yeah,
and yeah. And then CM Punk, sick choices, man, sick choices. G, what about yourself, man?
The first one that came to my mind was Stone Cold Steve Austin, just breaking the glass, because that would always just get me jacked.
Yeah.
Just break the glass and then it was just freaking brilliant, man.
It was Jim Ross going crazy when it happened as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Stone Cold!
Stone Cold is it? Stone Cold.
Yeah, you like it's relationship goals, isn't it? You want a girl to get as excited about you as JR does when Stone Cold walks down around.
Exactly.
Dude,
just have a whole.
I don't know what's going on with the audio, but I can't hear either of you now. I could hear a little bit, but I'm gonna try and I'll see if it's more.
Just unplug yourself, man.
Sorry.
Yeah, headphones off.
But yeah, exactly.
I think it's a connection. Anyway, just carry on, guys. Carry on. It's cool.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, man, that's a throwback. I haven't seen wrestling. I haven't heard about it in so long.
Probably the same stars. They keep dragging out the old stars for Undertaker and a Walker versus Goldberg, walking very slowly to the ring now.
Oh God! Actually, that is one thing that I did see, which was Goldberg versus Undertaker in wherever it was, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. That was it. That was
the most controversial business deal in the whole of pro wrestling history. They assassinated that journalist, they still went there and so murky.
They're like, we're gonna get paid, and we're gonna get paid big, and we're not gonna sacrifice.
They have. They've recorded their biggest profits ever into 20 million more than they were expecting, and they've let about 20 members of staff go, and they proved by the quarter earnings, proving they didn't need to let anyone go. But Vince McMahon's not known for being the nicest boss.
Yeah, exactly.
Micromanaging people, firing people, really strict contracts.
Yeah, man. He's
nicest guy.
Okay,
it only goes one way for your reputation, doesn't it? It only goes one way for your reputation, but I guess he's not in it for the same reasons you mentioned earlier, Si.
Yeah.
Not anymore. He's making money, right? He doesn't watch it. To be honest with you, in Vince McMahon's defense, he probably doesn't have the time to watch anything else. I've heard his routine. He gets up in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, he'll train. He'll get a limo to pick him up from the hotel or wherever he's staying to the wherever the show is that day. He's in meetings back to back, doing writing, staff and this. Then the show will go on, and he'll go back, fall asleep for 4 hours, and he's back the same thing again. He'll fly to the next town. So he probably doesn't have that that ability to actually to see anything outside of his own bubble.
It's theatre life, isn't it? Yeah, it's like kind of theatre life. He's constantly just producing, watching the show briefly, and then just getting back to it. Yeah, that's mad to think of it like that.
Yeah, exactly. He's one of the hardest working people ever, but he's just you don't get to that stage in life by being ruthless. And I suppose it's probably the reason why I probably won't have however my success is, and I'm hopefully it's sensible. But I'm probably not going to be a guy taking over the world with a multi-billion-pound business. So maybe I'll change. But I don't think I have that mentality. Whether I even want to.
Couldn't do it with love rather than ruthlessness.
Yeah, make enough to make me comfortable enough not to have to check my bank account every single week, and be relatively comfortable enough to provide for me and my other half, and do something of meaning, and I'll be relatively happy. Really, I'm not where I want to be financially or impact yet, but I'm still only just under 10 years into my career, so I still consider that a young trainee, really.
Yeah, fully. It's always it's a work in progress, right?
Always.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one. That was a wicked topic. Should we call it there, guys?
I think so. That's a good place to leave it.
Nice.
Cool, man. I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was sick to have you on, man. It was good chatting with you. Good getting your perspective on a bunch of things. I definitely learned some stuff from you as well.
Yeah, man. Well, if you ever want to, sporadic guest or whatever, if you pick a topic and let me chat, or just get on as a chinwag again, I'll happily do a reoccurring one if you fancy it. Just let me know.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. I feel like we kind of like scratched the surface as well. There's a lot of passion bubbling under the surface there. We can really bring up. And,
there's one thing I can do is talk.
Yeah,
we like that. That's what we need. Yeah, exactly. But he can talk, but it's actually sense coming out of his mouth, which is
it's useful. It's useful chat.
Yeah. Well, don't pick it up too much. Not always.
Don't worry. Yeah, next time he's on, he's gonna go to the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I can talk a lot of shit too.
Let's say that next time, sir. Say that next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Tune in next time for Simon to go
tune in next
wild
time.
on the
Exactly.
Achieve Evolve Thrive podcast.
Exactly. I'll be your equivalent. Remember Under the Bar?
Wait, 1 second. I still love how Umar still doesn't know the name of this podcast. It's like 18 episodes in. Like, achieve, evolve, thrive. It's like
gotta make it somehow.
Achieve, thrive.
You gotta make it. Gotta make it.
Yeah. Do you remember the Under the Bar podcast with the Clean House guys, Warden and whatever the other guy's name was? And they used to get the evil genius, Bodovic Chavez, or whatever his name was. Really smart guy. But give me a tagline like that, I'll be the equivalent of the evil genius and come on every now and again.
Deal. The evil genius. We're gonna be like, don't get the tables.
I listened to the Under the Bar podcast the first time in years recently, and I've never listened to it since because they got rid of that weird pornographic intro music that they used to have.
That was the hook for you, yeah? That was the hook for you.
Yeah.
That's what got us all in.
Oh, 100%. I was waiting for a plumber to walk in randomly to fix the pipe.
So why is there glitter everywhere, Simon? What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. The expectations were all over the shop.
That's it.
I still got balloons up for my 30th birthday. They've actually used glitter. There was like, I had a surprise party on Sunday, and like Ellie brought a few of her mates around. They brought in for food, did all the stuff. The lads were given one job. My mates, typical boy fashion, put some of these little golden glitter stars over the tables and things like this. Typical lads put it everywhere. There was some on the toilet. There was some on the bed. There was some down the sofa. I was putting on socks and I found stars in my socks.
Shit.
Yeah. Starry socks, man.
Good mates, man. Good mates. What you call that?
Yeah, exactly. You're going to remember us in every corner of your house.
We're still finding them. If we've got a cleaner twice a week, she's got rid of most of them. I'm still finding them.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Good stuff, man. You know the care, sir.
Exactly. That's what that means.
Yeah, but yeah, man, fellas. It's fun. I'll have to see if I can jump on a call with one of you guys to teach me how to use this as well at some point, so I can eventually do my own version, and I'll return the favor and get you.
He is your man. Whoever do this, he is your man right there. Bloody hell. Feels so curmudgeoned in his little tiny space. Anyway,
exactly.
He's using
this guy.
To use that for sure, man. Yeah,
for sure, man. Yeah. We'll chat about it anytime. We'll talk about
that. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Wicked. It's been great. Appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're enjoying the podcast as well, make sure you share it with your friends, people who deserve to be in the know, and subscribe to it as well so you don't miss an update. And follow us on Instagram at Evolve, Achieve, Thrive for other updates as well. And thanks again. And we're going to love having Simon back on for another chat.
For sure. Where can we find you, Si?
Probably Instagram best, at Kingsley Dutton. That's the middle name you didn't mention earlier on.
There we go. Yeah. I knew we'd get to eventually.
Yeah, so at Kingsley Dutton on Instagram. That's where it's half fitness stuff and half random stuff. But, it's hopefully entertaining.
Wicked. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes as well. All right. Respect, people. It was good fun. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.